everyone is having a good day. This is Jamarl Thomas. I am your host of the Progressive Soapbox, and this is the patron contributor appreciation episode with my lovely wife, Mrs. Thomas, who's going to have to back up just a little bit so the camera can... There we are. Maybe we need to press back a little bit. It's right. You know, the fuzzy sometimes, the camera itself. It's a weird technical glitch in the camera that if... It's moot point. I hope everybody's doing all right today. How you doing today? You good?
I'm good.
I already know that answer because this is my wife and we live together. But for the sake of the show, might as well ask. So guys, this is, as we do each week, this is the patron appreciation episode of contributor appreciation. It started off as patron appreciation, but people contribute in ways other than patron. And this is our way of thanking everybody for their contribution to the show. I'm going to need you back up just a little bit again. Thank you. Yeah, this is our way of thanking everyone for their contribution to the show. Whether you contribute or not, if you dig what we're putting down and you find yourself coming back here often, please at the very least share or like the content, and we'll keep kicking ass. Yeah. Any ideas for this week or any things you want to talk about before we...
If this is your first time here or if you've forgotten, as always, patron appreciation, like he said, aka contributor appreciation, is going to be live as it is now, and immediately after the video is done, it's going to be taken down and available to patrons only.
I forgot to say that. Patrons or
if you are contributing somewhere else through PayPal, Streamlabs, Super Chat, make sure to hit us up. We have a special link that we can send you so you can join the Facebook group and get all of the exclusive content there. So live now, but it's going to be taken down and available to patrons only. Once a week dedication show kind of thing going on.
Pretty much, yeah.
Also, if you are a patron, don't forget to log in weekly and comment on the patron appreciation reminder post. That is where you will say, hey, I think you guys should talk about this. We pull the topics from there. So, of course, today's topics are going to be predominantly from patron topic suggestions.
These are your topics. I often say that you guys make the show, and I mean that, like, almost in somewhat of a literal sense. I know when I first started the show, it was, for the most part, entirely directed just by the things that I want. And as you do the show, especially when you're getting into politics, people send you content and information all the time. It becomes not just a one-way thing, it becomes a two-way thing.
It's in emails and...
Yeah, emails, texts, tweets, Facebook, all of it. So people get in contact all sorts of ways. And so feel free. I mean, in mainstream media, you know, you're not necessarily going to get what you want out, but oftentimes there are stories that you may care about. And oftentimes if we are on the same wavelength, oftentimes I will probably also care about those things. After all, you are on this channel. If you're on this channel, there's some commonality here. Yeah. Doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to do it hands down, but on things that we agree on or the things that are kind of in the context of what I'm pushing for, yes, definitely.
So submit your weekly topic suggestions because he'll go over them and pick the ones that are good stuff.
Yeah.
And that's today's content.
In fact, all of it with the exception of like one. It's funny, when I first started doing the patron appreciation stuff, I think the first episode was like an entire UFO episode. And people was like, did somebody ask for that? It was like, yeah, somebody. Me. Because nobody else submitted the topics. After which I started more topics. Yeah. It's like, if you don't submit, you're going to get UFO content.
Yeah, because imagine if we only did patron topics. You know what I mean? Like, because for the first couple times, there were no suggestions. Yeah. So it's just like every other show.
But I got to be honest, the patron topics and my own topics are similar. So they're not so out there.
And there's often times where you'll say, I want to cover this. And I'll say, oh, that's a good one. So-and-so
asked for it,
So they're usually in line, as I imagine would be expected, because they're your subscribers. I mean,
it would be weird
that they would have like off the wall defend Donald Trump's stand on.
Right.
I mean, maybe, but typically it's what's in line with his thinking.
If Donald Trump said, "Let's take the troops out of Syria," like he did, I'm one of those people who are like, good. And all of those lefties who were bitching, like even like Tom Hartman's of the world, I was on this point saying, no, Trump is right. In which case, I was defending Trump. I don't...
No, that's not what I'm talking about. I know what you mean.
I guess I'm saying I don't particularly like Trump. But if Trump is doing something that I like, I don't care. You know what I mean? I care. My goal in this is not political affiliation. Just to be clear. And my goal is not, I need to get a Democrat elected. That's nonsense. My goal is not even necessarily to make Donald Trump lose. My overarching goal, the overarching goal over all of it, is to get real world change in the world. Like that after me, something fundamentally different has shifted to where the new normal that we go back to is better than now. That's my objective. If Donald Trump gets me any iota to that pathway in a real way, I'm on board. Okay. Yeah.
I think the show is, and you guys...
But by the way, he's not.
Just so you know, so we're just getting started. We've got about 110 people here. We're just giving everybody time to kind of get on, doing introductions, kind of chit-chatting a little bit, and then we'll get into the topics.
I'm trying not to interrupt.
Okay, that was a failed attempt then.
Well, I stopped. I waited.
You interrupted me by saying, I'm trying not to interrupt.
Well, I waited. You're finished.
But that's like walking up to somebody and say, I don't mean to interrupt, but, You
gave
go ahead.
Second and a half pause, which, by all standards, you only need to give 1 second for the person to interject and for it to be illegitimate.
Could you say what you got to say, please?
I'm just kind of defending the point that I didn't interrupt you on that point. I interjected after you finished, and you gave a sufficient pause. I think that you're trying to make me look bad by trying to castigate what just took place there as an interruption when I don't think that was the case.
What were you going to say?
Don't misunderstand me.
Could you come on so we can get started?
I've had a history of doing that.
Of interrupting.
Of interrupting. So, it's like the guy that cheated. And then the wife says, you were hanging out late. And it's like, but I wasn't cheating. I was playing chess.
All right, let me interrupt you. Donald Smeed, thank you so much. This is our first super chat for the day. Don't forget, while we're doing the show, I am looking at my phone so that I can see super chats. Yes,
super chats or Streamlabs.
Right. Yes, I know that I can see them somewhere else, but this is a way that I like to follow because then I can catch other people's comments as well sometimes.
Because we don't just read super chats. I mean, we read comments in general.
So that's why I'm looking down. But also, thank you for this first super chat. And as we're doing the show, don't forget, if you want to make sure that your topic, comment, suggestion, question, criticism is read aloud, then make sure that you do it through Streamlabs or super chat. But Donald Smeed was our first one. Thank you, Donald. I'm going to read your super chat, but we're going to respond later because it's actually on our topic list for today. He says, Trump raising China tariffs according to Bloomberg. Yes,
that's
on our list.
That's one of my news bites.
So is that a good segue?
That's a good segue. So I've one of the things that I've tried to do is, as you've watched, I've tried to get better with the channel. I look at my life to some degree like chess, and you look at advantages that you may have, and you try to think, how do I transition this advantage into some other advantage that gets me to point A to point B? Life doesn't necessarily have an end game in this point. The moment that you win the game, you find that there's more game. So it is just this perpetual transition of one advantage to the next to try to get to a better spot. Part of that has to do with expanding the amount of people who watch the videos and expanding the channel, like making the channel better. Some of that has to do with graphics. Some of that has to do with animation. Some of that has to do with trying to find better ways to present the content, even better ways in my own delivery of the content. Trying to prevent myself from saying when I'm giving statements, while simultaneously looking at how other people do it, so I can't necessarily take it. When I hear people talking extemporaneously off the top of their head, they do. Even the most brightest of people. My entire videos are on the top of my head, so me trying to limit that is actually a pretty fucking significant thing. But I guess my point is, the goal is to try to make the channel better, and I've been trying to do that.
And in that vein...
You just interrupted me.
You did a pause. It was a half a second pause. I thought you were finished with your topic.
Oh, so the half a second pause rule
I thought that was a requirement.
All right, go ahead.
As of a very moment ago, I thought that was a requirement.
Go ahead.
So, with that being said, each patron appreciation, of course, like we talked about, and we'll talk about again and again, the topics are pulled from topic suggestions from patrons.
Yes.
But he's going to do news bites.
Yeah, news bites.
Kind of
so news bites
shorts,
are like shorts.
Stories.
Oftentimes, and I'm going to do this for my own show also, to have just kind of and just to see if people care, kind of a weekly update series where it would be 5 minutes segments on multiple topics within the context of one video. So it may be like one video that's 20 minutes or 30 minutes with 5-6 topics, kind of like they do it in real news, like on mainstream media.
So you don't want to do like one video that's 5 minutes and just do like snippets and just do like.
Well, I do, but that's just.
I like the idea of doing.
Because I don't get me wrong, I like that notion. Like, but that's what I do anyway. Like, if you've noticed, I've started doing shorter vids, and having those shorter vids to be like 8 minutes, 10 minutes.
I know, but I like the idea. Okay, so I'm comparing this to. I know, if this is your first time watching, the reason that I'm here is to give a non-political perspective. Yeah. Something different to bring to the channel. Right. We have similar ideals, but I'm going to vary slightly, and I'm not in the political realm like he is. And so this is my take on it. But what I was going to say is the videos that I watch typically on my YouTube are not political shows, but I do see people who are doing like segments. So like in your show, you would have a segment that's called Bites or Thomas Talks or Shorts with, whatever. And it would be those specific ones that people know when it pops up. The intro has that, the header has that, and they know they look for those. And it's like, oh, sweet. These are short little ones, where I'm going to be boom, 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 in and out,
I like that, but I like that if there's multiple videos. So do you remember Oberman used to have this thing called In the News, and it would be like 5 stories within the course of maybe 3 minutes. Like, it's segments.
Okay.
Like, and I think because on my Twitter feed I have like a ton of stories that I can never get to because it's too many. And do shorts. Okay. Like, so almost like each one is like a minute, and do maybe 10 of them or 5 of them, and that's one video. Maybe that's the way to do it. But in that case, these are just news bites for this. And I think it's a good way to start it off, just to give people time to fill in and that type of thing, and to give people what's in the news. And like I said, some of these correlate to what people ask for anyway. The first one, and this one I haven't even gotten to on my typical videos yet. Poor Theresa May.
Dun, 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 dun.
Mayday. Poor Theresa May. Mayday! Mayday! Man overboard, or May overboard. Theresa May, the Tory party lost 1,334 conciliar seats. Those are like local elections. Many of these people punished the Tory party like this for Brexit.
Or lack thereof.
Get on with it. Get on with it. You haven't got on with it. Now, people in the media start, they look for ways to ask all sorts of questions, narratives. And they ask, is this the return of the Lib Dems? No, this is not the return of the Lib Dems. I'm sorry, it is not. What this is the major party being punished for not putting through Brexit. They keep saying both. They act as if both parties are being punished, but the reality of it is, look at this. They've lost 1,300.
To me.
Yeah, like Labor lost 100 seats, but let's say 120 seats. They lost 1,334 seats, and they're running stories like both major parties punished. That's not the same thing. That's dramatically different. Now,
so how was the other party being punished?
Well, they lost 100 seats. Like this is maddening. They hate Corbyn. They hate his guts. 1,300 seats. Now, here's the catch. Theresa May, after seeing this, comes out and puts out a big ad in the Daily Mail pleading for Jeremy Corbyn to come and do a deal. Please, Corbyn. Please, dog. Please, do a deal. Do a deal. Let's see. Message to Jeremy Corbyn. Let's make a deal. Now, this is going to entirely depend this is going to depend on the video showing for one. Here we are. This, you can imagine, was a brutal push. And here's the catch. Many of the parties that exceeded in this election, or that they will. Okay, I'm killing this page because they have a lot of garbage on this page that's eating up memory.
Oh, while you're doing that, I did want to read another super chat from Winkle the Burning Bro. He says he's sorry he hasn't called in lately at all. He's going through a rough patch, to say the least. So
I'm sorry.
Not Winkle. Sure if that is Winkle, but hopefully it is less rough soon.
Less rough.
And we'll hear from you soon.
Or that it just gets better.
No roughness. We'll hope that it's smooth, that it goes smooth.
And that you benefit from it in some way.
Yeah.
But no, dude, you have no obligation in this case, but I appreciate it, though. Thank you, man. All right, Tories lose 1,300 seats. Labour loses 100 seats. Theresa May comes out with a big letter saying, please, Jeremy Corbyn, help me do Brexit. We need to do a deal. Help me, dog. Help me, help me, help me. Dog. Begging. Now, the question really does become, what is Theresa May willing to give? Jeremy Corbyn has pushed for a Commons Union. Now, a Commons Union, not in the same Commons area as the European Union, but a specific one between the UK and the European Union. That's what he's called for. The Brexiteers in our party are entirely against this. The independent parties, the Liberal Democrats, did amazingly well in this, but this was somewhat of just a repudiation of what they saw in Brexit. If Nigel Farage and the Brexit Party was part of this debate, they would have done gangbusters. And in the European Union debates, the elections that are coming up,
right,
the Brexit Party is going to do gangbusters. The Brexit Party has just started, if I'm not mistaken, like a couple of weeks ago, and they have already outstripped Labour and the Conservative Party in regards to the elections. The main parties are being punished because they haven't got on with Brexit.
So you're going to do a full update video
hell
on that?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, there's an awesome picture of Theresa May. She is getting hammered in the British press on this stuff. Because keep in mind, this has gone 3 years. And they were supposed to leave in March, to which she said they were definitively going to leave in March. She was asked this breathlessly for 3 years. Are you going to leave in March? Yes! Strong and stable leadership here with Theresa May. March comes, no Brexit. April comes, no Brexit. And then this is May. And you have this embarrassing hat in hand begging the European Union for more time. Do you realize the British Empire used to be masters of the fucking universe? In many of the countries that we went to, Britain had viceroys in charge of those countries. And now Britain is in a situation where they literally don't have full control over their own affairs. How times have changed. You talking about Hitler coming up with the thing of trying to take over the European Union through military force. Who knew? You just need economic union.
Right, just another super chat before we move on to the next news bite. Winkle wants to clarify. He said, wait, why would I not be the real me all of a sudden?
Yeah, why would
you be? What does he mean, the real me?
Because you said, I don't know if this was the real Winkle.
Did I say that?
You did say that.
Oh, I'm sorry. I had a brain infarct.
I thought that was a weird response, but I wasn't
I said I didn't know if it was the real... That's what I said?
You did say that.
Holy shit. Okay, my bad. I don't know. I believe it's you.
You just got extremely cynical all of a sudden. There's Winkle attached to this name, but I don't know, man. Fucking CIA.
I don't know if it's the real one.
You said something like, I don't know if this is the real Winkle, or, I don't know if this is the real thing. Look,
I'll have to read it.
When you're doing video, oftentimes you're talking off the top of your head. And in talking off the top of your head, oftentimes there's a lot of stuff that just floats that you're not...
But that wasn't like even in my brain, so where did that come from?
I don't know.
I'm going to play the tape back and see.
You can play the tape back, but...
Not right now, but...
But I don't think he would have sent that secondary super chat if you didn't say something similar to that.
Well, I know. I believe it.
It was a weird response. But
you didn't skip a beat, though. Thank you for that, because I said some crazy shit and you were just like... Doo-doo.
I've been doing the news for 3 years, love. I could do that shit live in a heartbeat.
All right, come on. Next news bite.
People think that because I say that I can't be on it. I am amazing at talking and separating and seal off my head because I do it every day. And so yeah, I was going to hang you out there.
What people think that because you say
all sorts of people. Baby.
Nobody. You feel like you're defending a position that doesn't exist?
I get emails all the time.
Okay, let's move on to the next news bite.
All right, Trump's tariff tweet. This is possibly the dumbest thing that I've seen today. And I can't tell if Trump is comically this stupid or if he is this disingenuous. And I suspect it's a little bit of both. Donald Trump releases a tweet today.
This was today or yesterday?
This was, let me see.
He tweeting on Sunday? Shouldn't he be with his family? Oh, happy Cinco de Mayo.
Is it Cinco de Mayo? Today's May 5th? Oh, it is May 5th.
And yesterday...
We're supposed to be getting like blankets or something for May 5th. Right?
May the 4th. Hopefully the Force was with you for May the 4th.
And a few days before that, International Workers' Day, May Day. Did you know that started in Chicago?
I do, because George Galloway told you that.
George Galloway. And
if you haven't, wait a minute.
And by the way, it wasn't just George Galloway.
Wait a minute.
We were told that before, we just forgot.
Wait a minute. If you haven't seen and you didn't know, shame on you. But George motherfucking Galloway was interviewed by Jamarl this past week. Make sure that you go and check those videos out, please, and thank you.
Yes, the video is awesome.
They were good. There's a few of them.
There is a few of them.
But yes, May Day.
International Workers' Day. May 1st. And the wild part about this is they completely decapitated this from Americans. Like, they didn't want Americans to have solidarity with the rest of the world. Ergo, they moved Labor Day into a completely different, it's like a September or something like that, to disassociate it with the rest of the world. I got into a really good conversation with, I think it was Galloway. Was it Galloway? It wasn't Galloway. It was another gentleman. But we were having this conversation about the United States and how the United States sees itself as a singular entity. Like, it doesn't regard the rest of the world. Oftentimes, it's really self-interested. We're the best at everything, and because we're the best at everything,
America!
Right. And having these conversations about elsewhere. This also goes to the issue of language. Like, so, what's the point in learning another language when you're masters of the fucking universe? Everything is already in America. What's the point? But this
Speak
goes,
American.
Speak
and then
American.
what they say when people come here.
But this also goes to this thing of International Workers' Day and how that's been decapitated from the rest of the world. Like, it's a fascinating thing, man, and kind of the way we're disassociated.
Wait, just a little add-on before you go to the next topic, because we were talking about the Tories.
Yeah.
Balthazar, thank you for the super chat. He says, Jeremy Corbyn has no reason to help.
No.
He was anti-Brexit before the measure, and every second of May struggling is 1 second closer to him being PM.
Ish. Yes, and ish. Like, he has no reason to help her. Like, I agree with him on this. Like,
Right.
the Tory party called for Brexit. The Tory party got Brexit. Jeremy Corbyn was part of the Tony Benn school of thought, which was already Eurosceptic. And they know he's Eurosceptic and that he's towing the line for the party itself. I even had this conversation with Galloway. Because what Corbyn knows is that there is no way for him to enact his policies under a European Union government. So what do you do at this point? You're stuck with this thing of, okay, I kind of have to do this. And I have to make it like, I don't necessarily want to do this, even though I really do want to do this. Like, it's this weird politics that he has to do. So, from his standpoint, let him on it.
I'm not helping her.
The problem is, she's pleading with him in the middle of, this kind of embarrassing, please!
With the Keith
help me
Sweat
with
voice.
Brexit.
Remember Keith Sweat?
Yeah, I remember.
Begging all the time.
Begging, please, baby, please, give me Brexit. And so he's stuck with this thing of, if you are overly craven in your attention, meaning he has every intention in the world or every incentive in the world to try to become prime minister. His party commissions him to do so, meaning the people who put their support in him. However, he is also British, and he can't necessarily do something that's so craven that you ignore your responsibility to the British public. So, it's like an ish. It's, yes, he has no reason to help her at all. If you're 3 a.m. between him and his God, let that bitch feel. That's where he's at. Now, if you're asking him in the middle of, well, he has to be hard ass. I have him in his, like, he's kind of hood when you're at 3 a.m, like he's British hood, like where he has a British accent when he says, like you don't record him doing rap videos.
Is there such thing as a British hood?
Yeah, there is. There is.
Finish this so we can go to the next video.
I'm saying this in the most, like, brutal way possible, so understand where I'm coming from. However, if you ask him that in front of the public, he can never say that. You know what I mean? Like, the honesty of the moment has to give way to, if the prime minister wants blah, 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 we have these plans, blah, blah, blah. So he can't be so craven because the public will turn off on him. By the same token, he doesn't necessarily want to help her, so he can't help her. She has to come to him, and in coming to him, if the moment that he says, these are the lines that I'm putting out for help, if she crosses that line, he has no choice but to, otherwise he's just going to look bad. So, it's an ish. I agree with Balthazar. Ish. He has no reason to help her at 3 a.m. between him and his God. In the light of day, however, it's a little bit more complicated.
All right, let's go to the next news bite.
I love British politics, man. Like, I could do an entire show.
And you will. You'll
just
do,
on British politics.
You do. And you'll do one.
No. I mean, kind of like Black Box.
When you do, I get you, like a different channel altogether. Yeah. All right. So next news bite.
Donald Trump news bite. Donald Trump put this news bite out. This is comically stupid, and I can't tell if it's one of those things where he doesn't know, which is possible, or he's being disingenuous. Both of which could be extremely possible. Donald Trump. For 10 months, China has been paying tariffs to the United States of 25% on $50 billion of high tech and 10% on $200 billion of other goods. These payments are partially responsible for our great economic results. Yeah, that's absurd on its face. The 10% will go up to 25% on Friday, $325 billion of additional goods sent to the United States by China remain untaxed, but will be shortly at a rate of 25%. The tariffs paid to the United States have had little impact on product costs, mostly borne by China. That's nonsense. The trade deal with China continues, but too slowly as they attempt to renegotiate. No. Here's the reality of this.
Wait, scroll down. Look at that comment by Jason. Wait, right there.
Right.
That's perfect.
Yeah, that's right there. And you do realize that the actual costs are paid by Americans when they buy these goods, right? Tariffs are not taxes paid by China. Tariffs are taxes paid by you. They're taxes paid by you. The point of a tariff is to increase the cost of a product so that when an American is going to buy that product, American products are to some degree equal. Meaning it makes it more difficult for them. Wait a minute. Where is it? What just happened?
I don't know what the hell's going on here. Is it up at the top? What happened?
Damn it. I lost it. Hold on. I think here we go. Oh, it should be at the top.
Hey guys, while he's scrolling back up, if you're just joining us, make sure you hit the like button. We're at about 270 people here.
All right, right here. All right, what Donald Trump doesn't understand, or again, comically stupid or disingenuous, these are paid by us. A tariff is a tax. He even says it. Right here. But goods will remain untaxed. The point of the tariff is to increase the costs of a product that's sold here. So the American good and that Chinese good that would have otherwise been cheaper are now to some degree equal in costs, giving you higher opportunity or chance of buying the American good. The goal of it is to make the Chinese good looks less attractive to the person who's buying it.
Right.
The problem with this is those costs are borne by us. Like when they're sending products over to China and they're dropping the cost of the products coming back into the United States is because there's no tariffs on those products. Part of the way they're able, like when Walmart, that relationship between Walmart and China, part of the reason that those things are dirt cheap is because of trade deals, where those products can be bought back into the country where they're dirt cheap. Now imagine they put in a tariff on that product, increasing the cost of that product. So think of steel. Steel is a good example. So say, for example, China floods the market with steel. And let's say China is selling a bushel, I don't think steel in a bushel, but whatever, a quantity of steel for $100. And let's say the American steel is sold for whatever reason, because of maybe labor laws, environmental protection laws, and all this other stuff, for $150. A tax or tariff is now put on it. So now this thing is $140. So your American product is now more attractive in regards to the Chinese product because of the tariff that's put on it. Mm-hmm. That's bought by us. That's higher costs that we're paying. This notion, and he's bragging that he's about to increase it higher.
It's going to go to 25%.
You understand what this is? The United States doesn't like the fact that a country has higher economic output than it. Meaning, if we're talking about just the capitalistic system, in the capital system, in this just capitalistic way, what China is doing is they're just being better capitalists. The Communist Party, by the way, are better capitalists. Isn't that some shit? Because they're better stewards of it. Their goal of it is not the entirety of maximizing their profit. They have other objectives. So they look at this with a more even hand. The catch is, well, Donald Trump is trying to do something, but he doesn't have the capacity to do. When China put tariffs back on the products in the United States, they targeted people who were associated and were supporters of Trump. Right. Theirs were specifically targeted, if that makes sense. Meaning we're being hurt to some degree by these tariffs. Here's the catch, though. Democrats, you're not much better. When Obama was trying to push the Trans-Pacific Partnership, as a way of trying to game around China. They looked at China as being a threat economically. Do you understand what I mean? Like, the United States was perfectly okay with the way things was when its economic output dwarfed everyone else. Now that they have a competitor like China, they're now trying to change the rule set and trying to get pissy because China has a massive economic output. These guys have like 3 times our population. Of course they're going to have, this output. The fact of the matter is, China could supply all of the goods that the rest of the world needs by itself. So let's just be very clear that whatever we do in this regard is not going to stop them from expanding. This puts you in the mind, however, of what was taking place between Germany and some of the other superpowers. Germany was late to the table of being colonizers. And then late to the table, Britain and some of these other countries took this as somewhat of a rivalry. At a certain point, Britain and these guys made some kind of deal on the level of parity on warships and stuff like this. But it creates tensions between the two countries. And economic tensions sometimes turn into military ones.
AR Francis says, this is a good question, wants to know, doesn't China have to first pay the tariff and then it's passed on to the consumer? Isn't that how that works?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know. From my understanding, it was a tax on goods coming into the country. Let's look it up. I mean, either way, it's going to the consumer.
Well, I know that. I guess.
Let's see.
But
well,
he or she is
the
saying
specific.
on the front
how is
end,
it? Yeah.
China has to pay it up front, and then it is in the end passed on to the consumer. Like I said, either way, we're paying it in the end. I just was curious.
And by the way, it's not that I was even entirely against Trump. Look, I wasn't. I didn't think. I was agnostic on this tariff stuff. My thought was, if it has a negative effect, then it has a negative effect. What's the real world consequences of the thing that's taking place? I don't care that it's Trump that's doing it. I care about the consequences in the wider world. And if the reason he's doing it, could you put in tariffs for me? A tax? Oh, wait. That was it. It was literally the first question. Wait. Damn it. It was right there. TRIF. It was asking. All right. Let's get specific. Because I don't want to leave it without being specific. A tax or duty to be paid on a particular class of imports or exports.
What is a tariff and who pays it?
All right. Despite what the president says, it is almost always paid directly by the importer, usually a domestic firm, and never by the exporting country.
Okay.
So, essentially, us.
We're paying it in the end.
Whoever's importing it. So, think of it this way. Oh, that makes sense. So, Walmart goes to buy a ton of products from China. Walmart has to pay an additional tax in order to get those things into the country.
Right.
And Walmart then says, all right, now I need to increase the price because we're not going to absorb that cost.
Okay, so let me change
Does
the
that
wording.
make sense?
But let me change the wording, and this might be how Trump is making it is wording it. So China pays the tariff and adds that cost to the product. So instead of it being $1 for Walmart, now it's $1.25 because that's what China.
But what does China have to pay anything for? Like China.
No, but China makes it $1.25 for Walmart to
buy the product,
to import it.
But China is not the one. No, listen what I mean. The United States says, look, if you want to get something into the country, you're going to have to pay a tax on it. Like a toll. Think of it like a toll if you're going through a toll road. And Walmart is buying products from China. It's trying to import those products from China, meaning Walmart, the importer, has to take on the costs. Well, I guess my point to you is, it's not China that's paying it.
I understand
it's
that,
Walmart.
But I guess what I'm saying is...
And Walmart then translates it and turns it into the consumer.
I understand.
Does it make sense?
I was thinking about a different way of wording. Is that I understand. I do understand. I'm just trying to say, is there a different way to word it that Trump isn't full of shit?
No.
No. Is there a different way to word it?
No, it's not.
That it's true that... I don't know. I was reaching.
Yeah, because it's always paid by almost always paid by the importer.
Winkle says, yes, to clarify, China pays nothing extra.
Yeah.
The people buying from China pay.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I know. I just was like...
You're trying to give me the benefit of the doubt. I'm trying to help him.
Trying to find a way to word it that it makes sense. And I don't know. But
all right.
So that was the tweet from your president, Donald Trump.
Yeah. Bullshit tweet. Like, and this, again, agnostic on the tariff. Well, do you realize the United States used to fund its government on tariffs at one point? And this notion of free trade, it's nonsense. Like American workers are competing with workers in Bangladesh, making 20 cents an hour with no working rights. You know what I mean? So this notion of free trade is a little dicey in and of itself. So don't misunderstand me. This is not me being, against Trump just for the sake of being against Trump. It really does boil down to what is the real world effect. Yeah, it's just he's lying. It's not true. You can say that we're using this tariff in order to bring back American products, in which case it may hurt for a little bit, but it's better off because it helps American industry. Fair enough. But don't lie.
Right.
Don't lie.
And then you're lying to make it seem like, oh, this great surge in the economy.
Yeah.
We're doing so well because of this thing. And, it's actually the opposite of that.
Yeah, people are paying more.
Yeah.
And farmers are pissed off at Trump because of this particular policy. All right, so let's go to
our next news bite.
Right. Max Blumenthal, as you know, there have been embassy protectors, people who are at the embassy who are doing their best to defend it against what they consider to be a hostile take, and what is a takeover. Essentially, the elected government, Maduro, whatever you want to think of Maduro, and I don't think I've made any assertions of him being good or bad or anything in between. It's irrelevant to me, if I'm being honest. But he's the elected leader of the country. Now, you have Guaido, who's the United States patsy, who's trying to take office. All legitimacy with Guaido went out the window when Guaido didn't call an election, just to be clear. So he is not the legitimate leader of that country, regardless of what the United States wants to say. Max Blumenthal and many of the lefties have been guarding the embassy. He's not guarding it, but he's doing reporting near the embassy. And what they're finding is that the Secret Service and the police department is not defending the embassy against right-wing thugs who are trying to essentially break into the embassy of Venezuela. They're just leaving it pat. At one point, they were even stopping people from getting food into the embassy.
He wants an American.
Max goes and talks to one of the agents who's sitting there not doing his job. Or maybe is doing his job. That's the worst part. Yeah, that's the worst part. Let's hear him out.
The Venezuelan embassy. You can see there was a right-wing riot here. Hi, officers. Have you seen this video of them trying to break and enter?
Break it in or what?
The embassy. These rioters here were trying to break in the embassy. This was filmed inside.
Okay. You have to do that Secret Service.
It is a crime, however.
Secret
Service. Thank you. Okay, so we have Secret Service. Sir, did you see this video of them trying to break and enter? Or not? These people have already attacked several people. What do you think of this video?
Hot dog, that's racist.
And I'm a DC resident. I believe the law should be enforced here. These people are breaking the law. Okay, so we can see the kind of attitude that's presiding. I mean, I'm just showing him a crime taking place, and he's telling me to get out of here. And you can see this is violent characters. Hey, Dan.
They're trying to break down the door of the embassy.
Trying to break into the embassy. And the Secret Service has basically done nothing, and you can see their attitude. And they're in charge here. This is diplomatic. This is sovereign Venezuelan territory. They're shining. You can see over here. They're shining lights in people's faces. Those are the embassy protectors. They've been getting assaulted, verbally harassed, threatened, and beyond that, under Article 22 of the Vienna Conventions, it is the duty of any country, even if they're at war with another country, to protect the embassy of that country, and it falls to the Secret Service. What this is really about, though, is Mike Pompeo appears to have politicized the situation. When people call the Secret Service, they're actually, and here we can see. So you can see the Secret Service colluding with members of Gustavo Tarre's team.
We're going to step away because we're having.
What do you think of this break-in attempt, sir? What do you think of it? You're with Carlos Vecchio. Why are you with a bunch of criminals? I mean, you're wearing a three-piece suit, but you're basically a member of the Ku Klux Klan and a thug. Racist, sexist, misogynist.
There is American invasion over there.
American invasion?
That's the only American
You want
invasion.
an American invasion. You want an American invasion.
As you guys know, Guaido called for an uprising. He did not get that uprising. He got a few, essentially terrorists, who were, if I'm not mistaken, arrested. But the media ran this as if it was an uprising, as if it was this kind of civil war that was popping off. Now, I called it a civil war. Now, I called it a civil war for different reasons. My reason for calling it a civil war had to do with a superpower. Look, the United States has toppled governments before that didn't have popular support within the country itself. A lot of this sometimes boils down to military force, with the population not necessarily getting overly engaged, even though they're being subjugated. Bless you. So that's where I was coming from with this. That's my largest concern. Watching some of the financial media is interesting because the financial media looks at this through the lens of cash, and they would say there's no money to be made in Venezuela. Maduro's entrenched. We got to get him out in order to make cash, like that type of stuff. Whereas, like, you're calling for a civil war within the country. The United States has also been calling for the military to peel away support from Maduro, which literally would mean a civil war. Like, so the United States has been pushing for a civil war in this country.
Right.
Do we honestly believe that Mike Pompeo, Abramson, these guys have the best intentions? These guys have been paying kill squads in various countries. Abrams has been caught paying kill squads and lying to Congress about it. So these are horrible, disgusting people. Pompeo was talking about how when he ran the CIA, he lied, for a living. He was like, I was lied, stole, cheated. That was my job. And so you get an idea of who these people are. The person who succeeded Pompeo was a torturer at a black site in Thailand that when she got caught, destroyed the tapes of the fact.
Yeah.
It's like these are the people who are in charge of the hen house. And so when these guys are talking about, we're just looking out for the best of the Venezuelan people, it becomes clear on their intentions. This has to do with oil. Mike Pompeo has said oil and geopolitical influence, both. Pompeo has said as much.
Now, with that being said, going back to one of the patron topic suggestions, I'm going to read this question from Philip Hoffmanner.
Just before you do that, let me do one thing.
Okay.
When asked about what was taking place in Venezuela, AOC response was to punt. I'm trying to find the exact tweet, but when AOC was asked about her perspective of Venezuela, she said, I'm going to leave this up to democratic leadership to make a determination on Venezuela. That did not sit well with a lot of lefties. You have a lot of lefties who are putting themselves on the line, not for Maduro. Just we're clear. Mm-hmm. Like sometimes people get into this thing of like the bad man argument. He's a bad guy, missing the sovereignty argument that the country of Ecuador, regardless of whether that, would America want Russia to invade in order to get rid of Trump? It's an utterly absurd pretext. Would Britain, as much as they dislike Theresa May, want America to invade and put in somebody else that they would prefer? That's utter nonsense. But we look at other countries and think, yeah, we got to get that guy out there. Fuck what the country wants. We got to get that guy out there. What the reality of it is when Guaido gets in power, he's going to privatize those resources almost immediately, meaning those companies are going to get their hands on Venezuelan oil and minerals and all that other stuff. And a resource that was used for the population itself would now be used for American company profitability.
So you want AOC to be aggressive?
I just want her to be like, just say something basic. The United States should not be determining what takes place in another country. Her reasoning for not saying it's because she calls herself a socialist. And because she calls herself a socialist, the Republican Party in the next election is going to run on capitalism versus socialism, especially if Bernie Sanders is the head of the party. And they're going to say Venezuela is a failed experiment. AOC is a socialist, and that's the reason why she's trying to protect that failed experiment of socialism. So when they ask her about it, she says, punt. I don't want to, stick my neck out on something like this because I don't want to be castigated by it. I understand that the American public, it's this kind of your perspective of the other. Like when you think of the Green Party, and you go and you about to make your vote, Trump and Clinton are on the ballot, and you're like, oh God. And you're like, okay, maybe Jill Stein, and then you think, but she has no chance of winning. Now, when you say that, though, it's a conception of the world. Like you're saying, I don't think the world is going to vote for her, so I don't need to vote for her either.
Right.
Which is an odd thing because it means that a lot of people are having a conception of the world that if they would have voted for Jill Stein might have gotten 15, 20% of the vote. But instead, she gets 2%. And, that type of thing. But But I think that's what's going on here. I mean, I don't think it's necessarily this thing of her. It's for the same reason Sanders doesn't. Or doesn't talk about Julian Assange. It's that type of stuff. Sanders has at the very least come out saying we won't necessarily invade the country. Yeah, that was a positive that Sanders did come out and say. And I think when I saw that, I was like, good.
But AOC was just like, I'll let the party decide.
Let the party decide. But Sanders, at the very least, I'm trying to find this specific statement, comes out and says, under a Sanders presidency, we won't be running roughshod over governments in this way. So I wanted to give him credit for that before we move on, because people have been waiting for Sanders to say something about this. So,
okay.
All right. So,
Can I go into the next one?
Yeah. Is that it? We have more news bites?
No, we're going into Venezuela now. In line with the whole Venezuela update, we had a couple of topics to hit. So we want to talk about AOC, kind of pushing it down the line, but then also a topic suggestion from a patron this week from Philip Hoffmanner. He says, why is it that some progressives like Elizabeth Warren are in favor of regime change in Venezuela? You talked about all the bad and stuff like that. Are they just really badly informed? What kind of media do people like her listen to? I hope they at least consume Democracy Now!, TYT, or The Intercept, and not just New York Times, Washington Post, and MSNBC. Are those lefties in the Senate possibly also manipulated by the intelligence agencies? Or why do you think they just don't get this right? Because I sit here and I'm like, this seems pretty cut and dry.
And there's two questions on this, right? The other one had to do with Iran and Venezuela. Andrew Zygmunt Smith asked about this.
No, he was talking about geopolitical aspect of it.
Yeah.
And securing oil.
Yeah, and securing oil. All right, so let's answer this one. What do you think they're reasoning for it?
Why is mainstream media on board with regime change?
Mainstream media is often owned by multinational corporations that have other facets of, so the media arm is only one arm of maybe a conglomerate that also has maybe stocks or maybe interest in military hardware and that type of thing.
Well, he's talking about progressives or lefties like Elizabeth Warren, who are supporting the regime change or are for the regime change.
Elizabeth Warren is... I don't have this idea that Elizabeth Warren is not a creature of the Democratic Party. I mean, I find her to be part of the established order, just a little further to the right on domestic issues.
Is the problem that the label progressive is being put on people that aren't progressive? Like
Elizabeth
Warren, clearly, if they're in line with the Venezuelan regime change, maybe
seems
that
dicey.
Progressive title shouldn't be attributed to them.
Also, I would like for them to be in further debates on this. You never get the opportunity to see these guys, their thinking. Because I think their thinking falls short. If you talk to a Bernie Sanders gives you two answers on Venezuela. He would say, Maduro's a horrible, he's not a great guy, and we need to see what's best for the people, but we should not be getting involved in those conflicts.
Yeah.
Very clear. There's just no, he's pretty bright on it. That is an easier position to defend than we should get to determine what takes place in another country. I don't know. This is, okay, I'm taking guard gnome on this one. I don't know what's going on in their head on this. I don't care. They're wrong. And being wrong, they should fail. If Elizabeth Warren is on board for this, then she should lose. I don't give a shit who she's up against. That's where I am. We're literally talking about invading and using military sanctions and all of these other things. People like John Bolton and Mike Pompeo, the most disgusting characters. John Bolton was out there attacking the International Criminal Court. That should give you an idea on the type of person he is, because it was possible that the war crimes were committed in Afghanistan would come after him.
Right.
So he was going to attack that court. So these give you the horrible, disgusting characters that are part of this process. And if the Democratic Party is on board for this, I think it gives you this notion of what the Democratic Party is. And you need to question whether or not you should support people who have a foreign policy like this. Because here's the catch. How on earth is Elizabeth Warren or any of these guys going to enact any domestic policy with a bloated military budget that's nearly $1 trillion? And with all of the issues and failings associated with your country, think of the homelessness in America. Think of the poverty. Think of the people who are doing 2 or 3 jobs. Think of mine. Think of Granny. Think of all of these people who are barely making ends meet. They're not alone in this. This is a large part of the country. Half of the country is in difficult straits, if not poor. And yet, we find it necessary to use military resources to attack another nation. Like, this is disturbing. So if any of these guys are on board for it, I don't know what's in their heads. I don't care what's in their heads. If we're being, the most cynical of me will say, these guys have interests that go on behind the scenes.
Right. These are
corporate Democrats.
Even though Elizabeth Warren has somehow garnered the term progressive, or at least
on domestic front she is.
Some people's right, but I mean,
she hates bankers.
Yeah, so I don't know. I think that might be part of the problem, is that a lot of lefties or Democrats are being considered progressive or given this title of a lefty, and clearly their policies don't support that.
What I would say is, I don't give a shit about the label. In fact, let's burn the label. Let's boil it down to, what are your red lines in regards to what you won't support in a candidate? And let's have it that way. It's like, let's have a campaign that's more hopeful in this. These are the things that I support, not necessarily the things that I'm entirely against, but in regarding the things that I'm against, they're red lines.
Right.
If you are on board for this coup in Venezuela, that is a red line. Bright red line. And if you are running in a race against Donald Trump and you are on board for the Venezuelan coup, don't come to me for my vote. You know what I mean? Like, don't have Sam Cedars of the world, you should vote for so-and-so because of, that type of nonsense. No, there are things that I need you to represent. And if you're not representing them, you're not getting my support. I don't care who you're against. If you're talking about a way for getting change in this country, that is the only way you're going to get change. Otherwise, you're going to be essentially a cuck of the Democratic Party. Yeah, I'm using the term cuck, short for cuckold. Meaning, having your...
I know what cuckold is. All right, we're going to go on to the next the next point in the Venezuelan topic. Another question.
Philip Hoffman.
We just did Philip Hoffman. That was the...
I'm sorry, Andrew Zygmunt Smith.
Right. Andrew Zygmunt Smith says, could you, Jamal, analyze the geopolitical significance of America not securing Venezuelan oil, so our empire wasn't able to enforce the sanctions against Iran?
This is an interesting question, and I didn't fully understand it first, but the more I thought about it, I think I got what he's asking. All right, let me go back for a little bit. So, Hugo Chavez takes power in Venezuela. This kind of Chavista movement. And taking power in Venezuela, if I remember this correctly, before that, there were certain families that ruled Venezuela. And in the same way we have this deviation between black and white in the United States, there was a light skin versus dark skin deviation that took place in Venezuela. Regarding the Chavistas being darker, like if you look at Maduro, as opposed to if you look at, what's his name? It's like this difference between Spanish versus the indigenous population. The resources of Venezuela, kind of like the resources of oil in the Middle East, was used in this case for the people of Venezuela, which, of course, just like in the Middle East, flipped out various people. Like countries like Iraq, Iran, those countries at one point had oil that was in the hands of private interests. And when that oil became in the hands of democratically elected governments, the countries of the West flipped out and went into doing coups. The South America is not that much different in this regard. The catch here, though, is with Chavez, they tried to take him out, and they wasn't able to take him out. He was so popular, people flooded the streets in order to keep him in power. They said that he was to the point where they were about to kill him, where essentially they, pulled him at the last minute. Maduro is not Hugo Chavez. Despite him not being Hugo Chavez, and despite there being problems with him in that office, this is not a situation where Yemen is a humanitarian crisis. What is taking place in Venezuela, to some degree, is related to the United States oil production. I know this sounds weird, but these things are related. The United States has become an oil exporter.
Right.
Hugo Chavez, or you can say Maduro, tethered a lot of the public services and a lot of the economy to oil. When the United States became a major oil exporter and starts pumping out oil into the world markets, the cost or the value of oil goes down. I remember when oil used to be over $100 a barrel. Oil is nowhere near $100 a barrel anymore. That cost going down, because it was tethered, the countries that were dependent on oil for their economy takes a hit. Those just so happen to be our enemies: Iran, Russia, Venezuela. Venezuela being one of the major cases, Obama passes sanctions. which I think going back to like 2013 or something like that, Trump comes in office, makes them worse. Once the oil price goes down, Venezuela takes a hit, and the economy suffers. The United States pounces.
Yeah.
Does it make sense?
Yeah.
So there was a certain degree that, this ability of using this. Now, here's the catch. Trump also passed sanctions on Iran, and Trump comes out and says, I'm going to cut your oil exports to zero. This is nonsense because Russia and China has already said, kick rocks. You can go fuck yourself. We're not stopping our oil production on this. There's this question of, will they even be able to stop that oil from coming out? Because the Strait of Hormuz, it's a small little area that's like a few kilometers long, that a third of the oil from the entire of the world comes through. Iranian oil, Saudi Arabian oil, that type of stuff. Mm-hmm. If they're trying to stop all oil exports from coming out there, Iran has essentially said, if we're not getting our oil out, you're not getting your oil out. The secondary question becomes, will they be able to do it? If the United States gets its hand on Venezuelan oil, then the world may not miss Iranian oil. Does that make sense from a geopolitical standpoint? The world needs a certain amount of oil to kick off. Just because the United States has increased its oil production doesn't necessarily mean that that's the entirety of what the world needs to go. So stopping Iranian oil production, Trump has continuously said Saudi Arabia is going to produce more, but it's unclear on whether Saudi Arabia can produce the amount to supplement it. So there's a few problems here. A, will they even be able to get the oil out without causing an international incident? Meaning, because Iran is essentially saying, we'll stop the oil from coming out, so it's unclear. Even if you could stop them, which you can't stop them in its entirety, will the world be able to go by? Meaning, if your oil goes up to $10 a gallon, well, that's a complete fail, which is why he's trying to get Saudi Arabia to produce more oil, which again, it's unclear whether Saudi Arabia can do this. One catch, though. Venezuela has more oil apparently than anyone else in the world. And if the United States can get its hand on Venezuelan oil, it can once again flood the world market with oil, lowering the cost of oil in the sense of Iran. And in addition to lowering the cost of oil from the sense of Iran, the world becomes less needing of Iranian oil. Like, from a geopolitical standpoint, getting the hands on Venezuela allows a certain degree of attacks elsewhere through economic means, seeing as many of these countries are dependent upon oil. Does it make sense?
I got you, yeah.
Okay, I hope that makes sense. I hope I said that right.
I think so.
At least that's my understanding of it.
Brandon Adams says, keeping up with the Thomases. Thank you both. Thank you, Brandon.
Yeah, I hope I said that right. Because it is fascinating. But you can never. Oftentimes when the media reports this stuff, it reports it one thing, but it's never one thing. If you don't take into account how the United States has become a world oil producer, sometimes you may miss out on why some of these other countries started to run into issues. Yeah. And mind you, it's not a negative that the U.S. It is to some degree. I would prefer it be climate change, but it's hard. It's unclear whether or not that was intentional or whether or not that just was a happenstance that people pounced on. But however, whatever it was, they pounced on it. And yeah, if they can get their hands on Venezuelan oil, they will increase the production of oil, because under Maduro, the production of oil has gone down. If they can get their hands on that oil and they can get the capitalists in, and they can start cutting services, that type of stuff, and using that instead of using those services for the public, start using it for the companies. Yeah. That's what they're trying to do. But yeah, that allows a certain degree of geopolitical attack on Iran. The thing with Iran, though, is it's hard to know. 40,000 people in Venezuela have died based on the sanctions that we've implemented. During the sanctions that we implemented in Iraq, I think it was 500,000 that died before they even started the war. To put that shit in context. That was under Clinton and Madeleine Albright. The sanctions that they put on Iran have had similar effects, even though we don't necessarily know the number of people that have died in lieu of this. And we often forget that the reason why that theocratic regime is in Iran right now is because of the United States toppling the government back in the 50s. So, I hope I explained that right. I explained it to the best of my know-how.
I'm not getting anybody asking questions. I've been looking at the comments to see how people are responding, and I don't see any what the fuck is he talking about? What the fuck is he talking about? Yeah. Fair enough. So, and I got it, which that says a lot. All right, so I think that's all for our...
Yeah, let's go to Tulsi. Well, actually, the Venezuelan one was supposed to be like our fourth one, but that's right.
We're kind of skipping around.
Yeah, all right, so let's go to Tulsi. because that one is interesting.
All right, so I had this one was mine.
Yeah, go for it.
The one that I kind of wanted to talk about. I thought this was interesting. I think you were doing a show the other day, and somebody said they changed the DNC changed the requirements for Tulsi Gabbard, and I was like, what? And I contributed to Tulsi Gabbard because I want her on the debate stage, and my husband told me that if I want her on the debate stage, we have to contribute, and then I got the whole spiel about the requirements of getting on the debate stage. So we're going to talk about that just really briefly. The article that he's pulling up, which should be up there. Yeah. Well, it's an article that we have.
I know that.
Okay.
I wanted a background for.
Yeah, the article that we have talks about the requirements for getting on the DNC debate stage. And so I got an email, I think last week, from Tulsi Gabbard or somebody. It wasn't from her, but, somebody in her crew sent me an email saying, there's a possibility that we might not make it. One of the requirements was to have 65,000 individual donors, and she met that. I'm sure you saw that in the news. If not, Jamal covered it. There's some videos on that on the channel, but she met that requirement. But in the email that she sent me, she was worried that because of course that there's a shit ton of people that have put their name in the draw for president, because there are so many people that goalpost may move. And in that email, she mentioned that, like he's highlighting here, we're at 69,913 donors right now, and we expect that we will need at least 100,000 by June 15th. But that number may increase depending upon how the other candidates are doing. So this was the letter that her team sent out a couple of days ago, kind of giving us an update.
And just so we're clear, it's still 65,000 right now. That hasn't changed.
Right.
And I think that's where the confusion is coming in. They haven't changed the pretense yet. So right now, there are two requirements that potentially could be met, and there's 17 Democrats that are eligible for the debate stage, but currently right now.
Right. If the debates were today,
happened,
17 of these, I want to say schmucks, but not all of them are schmucks.
Not all of them are
But I just look at this, and all of these people.
There's this degree of
ridiculous.
absurdity to this, because there are more people who are now getting into the race also. So the question becomes, is Tulsi Gabbard at risk of not being in the debates? My answer, honestly, I want to say no, even though I guess I can't necessarily say definitively no, because there are other people who are further down that list. So right here, Tulsi Gabbard has hit both requirements, meaning she has the 65,000 and she has more than 1% of the polls.
Right, because those are the two requirements in order to be on the debate stage.
Right.
65,000 individual donors and the poll requirement.
And the poll requirements. And it can't be for all polls, but you have to have at least 1% in the polls. So it's either or. That's what it is right now. Right now, the people who are allowed for both, meaning has 65,000 and 1%, one independent senator from Vermont that's running as a Democrat, goddamn Bernie Sanders, feel the burn.
Booty gig.
The person who nobody's going to know.
Booty,
Right, I know, booty. Nobody's going to know him after this election. He's raising his profile. Kamala Harris, I think she's a dark horse. I think she has a chance in this, even though I think she would ultimately lose to Donald Trump. Elizabeth Warren, I think she may get roughed up by Trump, but I'm not certain. Look, some of this is just a dynamic of how it, stylistically, if that makes sense. I think stylistically, Sanders runs better against Trump. I'm biased, but I do think that's true.
Yeah. And can I comment on why?
Yeah, go for it.
Because he's not your typical politician.
Yeah.
The same reason that Trump won in 2016, because we wanted something that was different. We wanted somebody that we wanted somebody that looked different and sounded different. And that was Trump, unfortunately, but also Bernie Sanders. I mean, for him to come out and say, we got to stop doing what politicians are doing. And it's like, wait a minute.
What? Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. He's different than every run of the mill. I mean,
he is a politician.
Yeah, but
it's different. Yeah. It's not the same. Like, he's not even technically a Democrat, and we are told this breathlessly that he's not a Democrat.
Yeah, we got 2 super chats.
Oh, wait. Let me finish this part.
Yeah, we'll
all right.
Back.
So,
miss those.
Klobuchar, the one who abuses her staff, touchy-feely, Klobuchar, right? Okay. Touchy-feely Joe Biden, creeper, who I think is not going to have the stamina to go the long way in this race. I don't think he is.
It's funny that you're using the word stamina to describe anything related to creepy Joe Biden.
What do you mean?
I feel like he would like make sex jokes all the time, like creepy.
Well, he
Joe,
does.
Like
He told that woman open her legs.
I know, but I guess that's why I'm saying it's kind of funny.
Yeah.
That you're saying he doesn't have the stamina to go the whole ride.
distance. I don't
Okay,
know how
moving on.
long he can last.
Beto O'Rourke has also met both requirements.
Beto, who is not Hispanic, even though he is using Beto to try to make himself sound Hispanic on the ballot paper.
Happy Cinco de Mayo.
Happy Cinco de Mayo. And it was squirrely about his donations in the beginning. And like I said, if you are squirrely about who is giving to you, I am not going to vote for you. Like, if you can't even be honest about that, then that's problematic.
Is Beto like the Democrat? I wanted to do a video just talking about who the hell all these people are because I don't know who a lot of them are. But is he like the establishment's favorite? Who's the establishment's favorite? Biden?
So that's hard to say. So he's the blank slate. He's the Obama. He's the Macron. He's the person who you can just hang a bunch of stuff on. You know what I mean? Like, the person who would talk big without specifics. That type of that
we're gonna make everything awesome.
This is about our values, and we're gonna do the great thing, and blah blah blah. Just platitudes. So that's Beto. Yang is interesting. So Yang, at the very least, talks about our capitalistic system as a system and not something that's bestowed by God. That I actually do like. The other stuff of getting rid of some of the stuff in order to put through his UBI, I'm less happy about. But at the very least, he's talking about this capitalistic system as a system. And we have here one Miss Tulsi Gabbard, who I also am ecstatic that right now she's qualifying for both donors and posts.
Right. So to be clear, her email was basically asking for more money to solidify her place, which I can understand because of this smorgasbord of people.
But she's not insane.
No, and that's what I'm saying, because if you scroll down the article, they say the DNC has a self-imposed limit of 20 people. In order to meet that limit of 20 people, they're going to start slashing the requirements at some point because they got to get people out.
Right, because they want 2 debate stages. So think of it as 20 people. That's their thought. But if you have more than 20 people, what are you going to do? Are you going to have 3 sections of debates? What they're planning on doing is having 2 debates in this case, meaning for all of the people to be on stage. All of the people are not going to be on stage together. They're going to have a randomized pool of who gets on the debate stage together. So, you may have a situation of Grell with Biden on stage, which, that would be amazing. That would be amazing. Or Tulsi Gabbard and Biden. I want Tulsi Gabbard, Bernie, Gavel, and Biden on the same stage. That's what I want. Nothing else in life will make me happier. In that moment, it will be
I don't even
bliss.
see Gravel on here. I don't want to see Gravel on here.
We got to get him on this debate stage.
Wait, I wanted to read that part. Can we go back down?
I'm sorry.
Keep on going. Yeah, this gives so we'll put the link to this article below. This is the one I thought was interesting. But they're saying that Democratic leaders don't want to be accused of favoring certain candidates over others like they were in 2016. But the leaders might have to exclude some candidates if they want to stick to their self-imposed limit of 20 participants in the debates. Several other politicians, among them Governor Steve Bullock of Montana and Stacey Abrams, the former candidate of governor of Georgia, might still run. So we have 20 people now, potentially 2 more people. I saw in the chat Bloomberg or somebody else is thinking about throwing their hat in. So you're looking at potentially 25 people or so when the time comes around. And if you'll scroll down, it'll show you the chart. Go back right here. So Bernie Sanders is in the lead. They're giving you the 2 different requirements, the unique polls over 1% and who qualify, and the unique donors over 65,000. And so you see the first, what is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. First 8 or 9, starting from Tulsi Gabbard and going up to Bernie Sanders, they've all met both requirements. So she should be a good. She should be a lock.
I mean, look at all these other people who
haven't met both requirements.
So whatever they changed the requirement to, all things being equal, Tulsi Gabbard should meet it.
Now,
ideally.
Can you go back to show us on the bottom?
Oh.
This was my question. So you talked about before how they've had meetings. Nancy Pelosi talk about anti-Sanders, but then also anti-progressives. So if it comes down to we got to get some people off because we have a 20-person limit, people like Tulsi Gabbard and Bernie Sanders, who are, I believe,
There's no way
more
they get
progressive.
Sanders.
I guess my thing is,
They can chat her.
she's not an establishment Democrat.
Yeah.
So if it's between her and Cory Booker or someone who's more establishment, are they going to find a way to weed her out?
I feel you.
So I guess
Yeah.
my thing is, she wants to bulk her stance.
Yeah.
And, I mean,
And I don't blame her.
understandably. Yeah.
And she needs to, and you're running a campaign. You need to maximize your donations and everything else. So I don't blame her on this, nor do I blame her for being somewhat, concerned about making sure she's stabilizing her place on that debate stage when this stuff is in flux. So
Yeah.
I don't blame her in the least. There's something I want to
makes
show
sense.
though. Anti-Sanders. So, there were elements of the Democratic Party, which essentially was the established order of the Democratic Party, that got caught having meetings trying to figure out how they wanted to shaft Sanders. Now, the amazing part to this, why's the lighting do that? The amazing part to this is, I want to show this. So, understand that politics is not just politics, it's also media. Media plays a large role in political effects, and politicians often have sources that they feed information to. This was one of those things that Clinton was doing during the race. This was one of those things that was exposed during WikiLeaks. Politicians have their sources, feeding this, feeding that. People who they create relationships with that they can sheep stories into and saying, hey, maybe you need to talk about this. It just so happens to be against your political
Right.
opponent. It's advantageous to the reporter for calling it. So this happens. MSNBC. As you remember, Ed Schultz, before Ed Schultz died, Ed Schultz comes out and says that he believed he was fired because of trying to cover Sanders. That in trying to cover a Bernie Sanders coming out session, not Sanders being gay, but Sanders coming out for a presidential election, that they prevented him from doing this and instead sent him to some innocuous, ridiculous event just as a filler, to prevent him from doing this.
Right.
And so when we're thinking in the context of media, we also have to think the context of media as being part of the political space and part of a political space that is not necessarily on board for Sanders. Why do I think this? CNN putting people in the audience as plants. Some of the questions that they were asking Sanders, they were just over the board. And polling. Look at this result here. Look at this. The number of unique donors. Bernie Sanders is 563,359 unique donors. The closest is Buttigieg. Booty. 158,000. He dwarfs.
Look at the difference.
Even the
between them.
closest. Bernie Sanders is kind of like the United States weapons, the amount we spend on weapons, but that much more than the rest of the world.
It's like eight times over, like higher
You can
than all the others
combine Pete, Kamala, Elizabeth Harris, and Biden, and it doesn't touch Sanders' unique donors. Isn't that amazing? Like, when you're talking about support, and you're talking about grassroots support, and by the way, because these people give like $20 or $10 the donation, when Sanders is 2 years out, they're still giving. Like, they're not, this is not these guys maxing out within the first few moments. This is
a continuous contribution.
give
Yeah.
all throughout the election, meaning Sanders has reserves that he can continuously go back to in order to, and he's already ahead in money over all of the other candidates. So, but they still have these conversations as if Sanders is not the front runner, as if this stuff is kind of up for grabs. He is a front runner. There's something else I wanted to say on this. Rachel Maddow. So, polling. So there was polling that came out that CNN comes out. CNN says that Bernie Sanders is 4 points below Biden. That Biden is 24 points ahead. And then you look into the poll and you find out that they were including only people who were like 50 and above. They ran this as if this poll showed that Biden was leading Sanders. Biden was leading Sanders among geriatrics. But if you remember, Sanders was beating Trump and Clinton. In some respects, he was getting 80% of the youth vote. Obscene. And so if you do a poll and you intentionally don't include people who are, let's say, 30 and under, then it's a off poll. The poll is not legit. And not just not legit. In the next election that's coming up, you're going to have more of the youth vote than the elderly vote.
Yeah, for like the first time.
First time ever.
Yeah.
And so if you're doing a poll result and you are CNN and the majority of the people in that polling result, like your 30 or even 40 and under fits into like a little booth because you don't have enough of them in the thing, then you've just lied. I can't say you did it intentionally. I said, look, either you're massively incompetent or you are lying. You be the judge. Rachel Maddow does something similar on this. Rachel Maddow does a scene where Rachel Maddow comes out and says, look at Christian Gillibrand. She's ahead with the women vote and the people who've been donating that are women, the unique donations that are women. And she runs this like 51% of the people who are donating to Christian Gillibrand are women. Only 30% are Sanders. This seems unsustainable to me. Look at the number of donations that Christian Gillibrand has.
What number?
She doesn't even meet the qualifications. She doesn't even meet the qualifications to get on the debate stage from the standpoint of donations. But Rachel Maddow is running this as if she's the king of the room. It gives a misimpression. Yeah, you may have a large number of women that are donating to your campaign, but you don't have that many people donating at all. So you might have an outsized growth just because you are a woman. In the same way that Obama, as he was black, he had people who donated to the thing. That's what it is. But you need more donations, hun. Yeah, I'm being extremely sexist, yeah. But you get my point. Step your game up.
All right, so I need to go back before we move on any further and catch us up with the super chats. All right, Vicious E said, we're a couple minutes behind. Oaths of alliance between Tulsi and Bernie aside, just who are these elite superdelegates exactly?
I think they are.
What's to stop them from fucking everyone again?
If I was Bernie Sanders and if I was Tulsi Gabbard, you know what? Not just
at the same time.
No. If this was me, my mom used to tell me. She said, "God, I don't want you to be a lawyer, and I don't want you to go into politics." She used to say both, but she said because essentially these guys lie for a living, and I don't want you to become that person.
You lying all the time too.
I don't know. Not in serious listeners. I may joke around like that, but I'm not.
You
play
loud.
I play loud. Yeah. If it was me, if I was Bernie Sanders, the moment that I lost that race, I would have did what he did, started our revolution. Then I would have said, our revolution is something separate and distinct from me. I don't have anything to do with it. And let our revolution be headed by Nina Turner, and let Nina Turner be as sassy as Nina Turner want to be. You know, Miss Turner, if you're nasty. Now, pursuant to that, do what he does. He goes to the Democratic Party, or the Democratic Party comes to him. Their brand is burnt to a crisp, to a cinder. Nobody trusts them. They're seen as the corporate party that's out for the rich, just like the Republican Party, essentially both. And the one independent senator from Bernie Sanders is the most popular politician. And they said, please, Sanders, please, just rub whatever on us and let us go out on the stage. Tom Perez gets shit on by a bird. That bird lands on the podium of Bernie Sanders. And it's love, and people, you know what I mean? Like, people, like, and the Democratic Party does what they can in order to use that. What I would also do is, I would say, I don't want to be on that debate stage alone. I don't want there to be 5-10 corporate Democrats and by myself. Yes, I don't want that dynamic.
Yeah.
And I would go to Tulsi, especially if he really is into the socialist stuff. I don't want to be an interventionist. I want you to go out and do you, boo. Just do you. If you want to be anti, do it. Push me to the left. And so when she's on that debate stage and he's on that debate stage and he has to deal with what she's saying, meaning pulling him to the left, I would totally do that. I wouldn't be shocked in the least if these guys are kind of working in tandem. And you may be shocked by this, even Warren, even though I don't trust Warren. That sounds bad. It has nothing to do with her being a woman.
They're all politicians. It's a limit to how much I trust any of them.
Yeah.
All right, next question from Solomon.
Oh, with the super delegates, screw him. That was the question that he asked. The super delegates are going to come in around too.
Who are they, and what's to stop them from fucking us over again?
There's nothing to stop them from fucking us over because they're all there.
Yeah.
All of the super... They didn't rig it 60% less. Let's put that shit in context. If this goes to the second round, which it could, because you have 20 people who are in this contest, and there's a certain amount that these guys need to get in order to get delegates. But you could have a situation... With this many people in the race, you could go to the second round. That's the reason why Sanders' team is schmoozing with the super delegates to try to make sure what happened the first time around doesn't happen again.
Half of these Democrats are running.
It could be. They'll force it into the second round.
Yeah.
I don't look at all of the corporate Democrats as individual actors. I look at them all as one thing.
They're part of the DNC.
Yeah.
All right, so Vicious E, that was his comment. Vicious E, let me just also say, last week's patron appreciation, we went pretty deep dive into super
Superdelegates, yeah.
If you are not if you're a patron, go onto the Patreon platform and check that video out, because it's a lot and there's some good feedback from the chat and everything along those lines. So check that out. If you're not a patron, shoot an email to us at the link below. Give us your name and I'll send you the link so that you can join the Facebook group, because like I said, if you're contributing, we do have access.
We give access.
I'm sorry, I'm doing too many things at one time. We have a secret club kind of private group on Facebook where everything that is put on the patron platform is put into this Facebook group as well. So if you are trying to see last week's videos, of course, if you're a patron, you have access to all of that automatically. But if you're donating by some other means like Super Chat or Streamlabs and you want to get access to that content, send an email below and I'll send you the link for that. So thank you, Vicious.
I don't know if anybody goes back and watches those videos.
They do, because people have commented on them.
Okay.
I've seen people comment, and then I've seen people who last week we covered someone's topic. I think it was Chris, and he came back and said, "Thank you for covering my topic."
Oh, cool.
So I think people do log into Patreon and watch the videos. Okay. The next comment was, we've got a couple, so we got to knock these out. Was from Solomon Bielik. He said he'd be interested in seeing a video that breaks down the cost difference for Medicare for all versus our current system for civilian costs. You want to write that down as something to kind of maybe look into?
And well, in fact,
a video that breaks down the cost difference.
I can do that, but that it's funny. That's that's literally right here. So this website shows exactly how much Medicare for All will save you individually based on your income and your yearly health insurance costs. Note that you save even more if you needed medical care, because there's no copays, deductibles, or insurance. So, we pay more in tax. The business may pay a little bit more in tax. But one of the major costs that we have to deal with from the standpoint of businesses is healthcare. That is a drag on the American system because many of the countries abroad don't have to cover that cost. It's the reason why businesses, many, are on board for this, because it cuts the amount that they themselves also have to pay out. Not to mention, if you're thinking of drug costs, this goes down. If you're thinking of copays, this goes down. Like, if you're thinking of the profit-seeking mechanism that's part of our healthcare in and of itself, we pay twice as much as the rest of the world. It's not because we use the same amount of healthcare. That's purely because profit is part of our healthcare system. Even when Obamacare came into play, Obamacare might have just tweaked the cost around the edges, but ultimately, the same system still was in place. But we could do a cost breakdown, but this is right here. This is the current income breakdown, and this is Sanders' proposal, meaning based on like how much you're paying, that type of thing. So if you made, let's say, $35,000 a year. I think the average wage in the country is about $30,000 a year. Healthcare, I don't know how much.
3,000. Oh, okay, 5,000.
So we pay about $5,000 a year. Your yearly disposable income will be higher with the Sanders healthcare plan. So the current amount per year. I don't know how to read this.
Yeah, I would just say...
Oh, here we are. So this is the breakdown. This is...
your disposable income.
Yeah.
Okay, I get it.
Yeah. So the effective tax rate, 12.8%, meaning this is how much you're paying for taxes. This is your disposable income. This is Medicare for all for 2.2% flat tax, as opposed to $40,000, $5,000 essentially.
For insurance.
Wow, look at that. So if you're making $35,000,
$5,000 for your insurance premiums a year, you pay $140 of your income towards...
Your income tax goes up by $136, but you're not paying $4,955 that you typically pay. The point is, if your wages are lower, the amount that you save is more.
Okay.
Does it make sense? And so, and even think of it this way. Think of it as you were at your job. You switch jobs. And when you switch jobs, your new job says, look, we don't use Anthem. We use...
Cigna.
M4A. We have a new healthcare insurance called M4A. Medicare for All. I don't have to tell you what it is. It's M4A. And the M4A is going to be paid in your taxes. It's not going to be paid, out of pocket. And so when you go to the healthcare, you're not going to have to pay anything out of pocket. You're not going to have to pay for these tests out of pocket. You're going to be able to keep your doctor, and you're going to get all of the healthcare benefits that you want. Maybe not abortion, maybe not routine like breast augmentation or anything like that. But your basic healthcare needs from cradle to grave are insured, and you're paying it through your taxes. And this is new healthcare, M4A. You even get a new card. It's red, white, and blue.
Like Medicare card?
Yeah, kind of like a Medicare card. My point is this. When I switched jobs, I had to get new healthcare. Every year at my company, I had to get a new healthcare plan. I don't think people necessarily love their healthcare insurance companies. Is that right? Yeah. I don't think people love their healthcare insurance companies. They just want to make sure they get healthcare.
Yeah. I did like when I had Cigna.
You say you did?
Yeah.
Why?
Because I had to pay less.
Right there.
Their communication was better. They had more perks for me. I had incentive money that I got every year.
Now, what if you didn't have to
for
pay?
Going to the doctor?
And what if
that would be nice.
There was a situation where you changed jobs where for whatever reason you weren't making as much,
and it stayed the same?
And what if, I'm trying to get, I was in a situation. Look, I am Medicare for all is my red line. Flat, for full stop. I was in a situation when I was working at it was a company. It's called Cupid. It was a company in New York as an engineer, and I was making about $40K a year. I wasn't doing horrible. This was the first time I was making something decent, and I was there for maybe 3 years. I get sick, and I need to go into the hospital, and I need workers' comp. The guy doesn't want to give me workers' comp. In fact, he lies. He tells the woman to essentially, he goes to her first, so she wouldn't give workers' comp. There was that type of stuff. And I go into the hospital. I'm in the hospital, and I get an email, essentially 2 emails. One email, congratulations on your year back at the company. And the second email, this company is no longer in existence. And please see me when you come back. Which means I got fired in the hospital.
That's awesome.
That's awesome. This also just so happens to be my 3-year mark for Medicare. In which case, not only did I lose my regular insurance, but I also lost Medicare. When you have a kidney transplant, you have a certain amount of time that Medicare allows you to remain on Medicare to make sure that nothing goes wrong. When that 3 years is up,
they're assuming, okay, well, you're eligible to work full time.
Right, you're good now.
So we're good, but because you have like a chronic illness or you are eligible for Medicare, we're going to give you some time.
Right.
So you get 3 years to see, if you can really survive in the workforce, if you're going to be able to hold a full time job.
That's exactly what it is.
So you have a 3-year span, and then after that 3 years,
I lose my job.
You go back to your regular insurance because you don't need us.
The reason I was in the hospital is because my kidney was failing. The transplant that I had failed. So in the hospital for transplant fails, I lose my job at the exact same time that the transplant fails, and Medicare is done at the exact same time that your transplant fails. Trifecta. Now, they say you can get COBRA, but what's the point of COBRA if you're not working? I mean, COBRA charges like $400 or $500 a month.
It's really expensive.
And so it's like, how are you paying $500 a month without a job? This is the American healthcare system. Like, this makes literally no sense. And so then you're in the situation of, all right, I'm supposed to get transplant drugs. How? I don't have a job. I don't have Medicare. I don't have...
Yeah.
This is not just me, man.
Medicare is not easy to deal with.
No.
So the process to get reinstated back into Medicare
is a pain. It's a pain. So it's like, but this is our healthcare system. Now, if I was born anywhere else in the world, meaning any Western country outside of the United States, or Cuba, this is not an issue.
However,
and if I'm not mistaken, maybe even not even Venezuela. I think their healthcare thing.
So, all right. So, we're good on that one.
Yeah, we're good on that one. I guess my point is this: the Medicare for all thing, man. It's a hard argument for me that people shouldn't have healthcare. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I remember in 2016 where they asked Bernie, do you think healthcare is a human right? And he was like,
damn right.
Yeah, I think it's a human right. And people, this was controversial.
It was Fox News.
It was like...
Well, because it was Fox News. And
why
he was
are we having a debate about this?
Yeah, he was like, how are you... He says, how do you ensure that healthcare is a human right? He said, it's a person. You know,
Are you a human?
are you a human being?
And you,
Because I'm just saying, I consider this the evolution of society. Like, does your society have the means at which to ensure that people have health care? And if it does and it doesn't, then, you know, it's one thing if you don't. Like, if you're in ancient Rome, nobody is expecting you to have dentists for each and every person. So understand
right,
what I mean?
but I mean, that's like saying, can we provide clean water? Well, that's debatable.
Can we provide
too.
clean water?
Well, that's debatable.
Well, the answer is yes,
yeah.
we can. Do we? No.
Right.
There's differences. Can we get rid of poverty? Yes. Do we?
Just
No.
advancements in society. Okay, it's time
Yeah.
to make a change.
And in this case, can we provide health? Yes. Yes. And this is one of those things where lefties are being hard on saying, you know, this is something we definitely want to do.
All right, so to sum up, that was a response to Solomon Bialik's super chat. So
I'll put
this
this at the bottom.
website, yeah, he's going to put this in the description box, but this website that we're looking at is called BernieTax.com. So this is a good place if you're looking for that breakdown, going over the difference between Medicare for All and the current healthcare that you have to pay. Another super chat that we had from Michael Blum said, "Goddamn Bernie Sanders." I think that's when we were talking about all the candidates and we were talking about him being at the top of the polls. So thank you for that, Michael. And then I think I missed...
Wait. Let me answer this one. What do you think of George Galloway supporting Nigel Farage? Well, Galloway, just to be clear, is not supporting Nigel Farage. Galloway is supporting Brexit. He's supporting the Brexit party. There's a difference, if that makes sense. Like, if I say I think, let's say if I'm British, and I say, look, I think we need to have control of our borders, and I want the plan that Jeremy Corbyn puts through, and because I want the plan that Jeremy Corbyn puts through, I think we need to be out of the European Union. In order to get out of the European Union, which I consider to be an anti-democratic system, and again, this is the logic, that I consider to be an anti-democratic system, then what's the fastest thing running? The Brexit Party. Nigel Farage is running the Brexit Party. So even though UKIP turned out to be pretty grotesque and the people who were part of it, and even the Brexit Party, regardless of what Nigel Farage says, is probably going to trend that way of people hating immigrants and bashing immigrants because you're talking about a party that's specific to leaving the European Union. His support of Nigel Farage ends there. So be very clear on what that means. It's not that if you had a conversation with George Galloway on a host of issues, he would probably disagree with Nigel Farage on like 90% of them. When you get to this issue of Brexit, however, they agree. You will find yourself that you would agree with some people who you may find rather detestable. You know, Hitler likes dogs. I like dogs. You know, that stuff. There are things that you find yourself on the same political side. I'm trying to think of a specific one in the United States. Donald Trump wants to be more conciliatory towards Russia, at least in rhetoric. I agree with that. Completely disagree with Trump on the other stuff. I agree with Trump in putting a bullet in the Trans-Pacific Partnership. I disagree with Trump on this other, you know, the rest of the nonsense on environmental stuff, shutting down the government. You know, you can go down the list. So, you know, he's supporting Nigel Farage as a weapon, and that weapon is we want to get Britain out of the European Union. I think it begins and ends there.
Okay. All right. To move on to the next super chat, we're catching up, guys. I know that there's been a few that we've missed because we were kind of like in the...
We'll catch.
Yeah. So GDNPB says... says everything they do is about their agenda for the 21st century. They need total control of oil to make it obsolete. Agenda 2130 is an austerity plan of control and depopulation. Water is their new oil. This is from GD. Are you writing some of that down? For Agenda 2130.
I've heard of hypotheses that people in power are trying to depopulate. You know, this notion that there are too many people, and if we kill off a large part of
like
the Thanos argument, yeah. Let's call it the Thanos
agenda. Thanos agenda.
Thanos agenda. That works. Look, I am. Believe it or not, I know this sounds like a conspiracy theory, but I don't necessarily think this is all that insane, or the logic of it, if that makes sense. You have a society that's becoming more and more technological, and if you are extremely rich and extremely wealthy, labor is a pain in the ass. Like you doing something, you want to accomplish X or Y. You need labor to accomplish X or Y. You can't do it by yourself. Labor never asserts its power in this and saying, look, we're not going to allow billionaires. What the fuck would we allow billionaires? We're not going to allow the resources to be used in this way.
Yeah.
They don't do it. So these guys, for the most part, have been able to get richer and richer and richer. Money, however, is not real. And so you have this situation of you still need hands. You still need, money allows a certain liquidity in regards to a societal framework that acknowledges it and that can use it. But if you get to a certain point where you can have this kind of technological machines that can build these things on your behalf, if you have these robots that can handle most of the labor, most of the work, you can depopulate, cut down on the population while simultaneously still remaining in control. Now, my concern is even if they don't cut down on the population, well, if you have machines doing most of the labor, then you can deplete the power of labor within the market. Assume for the moment that there's no depopulation problem. Like assume there's not some sinister person in the back behind the scenes and we're going to kill everybody off. It's just as bad with the strategy now. I mean, you have somebody like the Koch brothers who wants to get their hands on oil and all this other stuff, but also wants to cut down on rights of individuals, rights of workers, attacking labor. They have every incentive in the world to do it because that allows them to get richer, more wealth for them in this case. But it's like, what is that wealth? I guess my point is this. The power of labor in this society goes down the more that machines are built into the society itself. And one of those things of machine learning, machine automation, that will allow those who control that automation, for the most part, to be gods. Like imagine a situation like nobody's buying your product. Okay, fair enough, but you have all of the factories, you have control of all of this stuff. And workers are doing whatever they can just to get any job that they have at their disposal because now you have these factories that are entirely or mostly automated. Like the power of labor in society goes down. Now, the problem with this is not going to work in this kind of intended way of a depopulation. It's going to work as chaos, riots, getting right-wing figures like Trump or left-wing figures that tries to do something about the fact that this is taking place. Andrew Yang is kind of making this point. And I think a lot of the chaos you're seeing in society is reminiscent of that. I don't think you get a Trump or a Sanders if the world is just going fucking awesome.
Yeah.
And that's, by the way, that's not just in the United States. That's Britain for the Brexit, Bolsonaro in the sense of Brazil, the Five Star Movement in the sense of Italy. I want to say Slovenia and some of these Eurosceptic countries. Like across the world, this is taking place.
Can you pull up Streamlabs also?
I hope I answered that right. What was the exact
Please don't make me
question?
scroll back up there.
Okay. Don't worry.
All right, Anna Maxa, thank you for the super chat. Anna Maxa says, the Democrats are the neo-feudalist party. Bob Ramirezma, that ain't right.
Honestly, Republicans aren't, Republicans are just as bad, if not worse. Bow like a leopard. Thank you, bow like a leopard.
Bob Ramirezma says, has Sanders raised enough for leg braces yet? That ain't right. Next super chat we missed was from Lori Mountain Gal Powell. We did actually. Lori says, talk about Assange, freedom of speech and press. Last week we did a full-on Assange update, and earlier in the show we talked kind of briefly about Assange.
Oh, right. Well, no, we didn't. Dude sent Glenn Greenwald. That was an email. Do you remember?
Oh, where is that? The NPR video.
Glenn Greenwald has a conversation about Julian Assange that you pointed out was really, really good. It's right here. Hold on. Wait.
Lori Mountain Gal Powell, thank you. We're going to. But yeah, check out, if you're a patron, check out last week's video because we did give an update. Jamal has done some other Assange updates as well. So we try to, give all the updates that we can as we come across them. But we do have one.
What the fuck is that?
There it is. Watch Glenn Greenwald.
Okay.
Yeah, Glenn Greenwald was on NPR. This was sent over to us from a patron. Dun, 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 dun.
Glenn Greenwald is kind of making this point that, look, if you can go after Assange, you're just criminalizing journalism. This is not about the DNC stuff. This is about Chelsea Manning and the information that Chelsea Manning released. Part of the reason that they're holding Manning is because they want to squeeze Manning to try to go after Assange in this case. They're trying to make this argument that Assange was some kind of hacker as opposed to a journalist trying to elicit information from a source. Understand what that would do from the standpoint of journalism in places like the New York Times, Washington Post. That's assuming that these guys are more than just stenographers. Listen to Greenwald. Greenwald has been a lion on this front, and if I'm not mistaken, was one of the people who got this information out in the first place. So let's hear Lynn.
Just so the topic for this one was Greenwald owns NPR. That's
owns is too strong.
Yeah, that's a little aggressive. There's some back and forth because there's some pretty broad labels and inaccuracies being told by David Green from NPR, and Glenn Greenwald is pretty
aggressive in putting it down.
Yeah, so it's not that serious.
Now,
yeah.
Assange, it's hard to know whether or not Assange is going to be extradited. I asked George Galloway whether or not Assange was going to get a fair trial in the UK. His answer to me was, for the most part, he said he would take British justice over American justice because he thought it was more fair. And
didn't he also say, I trust a British judge over a British politician?
Yeah, he did. Yeah,
well,
he said it was less politicized as a body, as an organization. So we will see. This extradition fight can go on for like a year or more. Yeah. And even if it gets into the United States, the question becomes, how the hell do you prosecute him? It's like, good fucking luck trying. Now, here's the catch. Whether they prosecute Julian Assange or not, Julian Assange could get to the United States after, let's say, 2 years of extradition hearings, or a year of extradition, get to the United States and the judge throws it out. He would have spent 7 years in captivity for something that they couldn't pin on him. Like this, so this can be, there's a certain farce and tragedy to this, just built in, because it's hard to figure out how the hell are you going to prove that the guy was a hacker as opposed to a journalist. And the moment that you do, look out. Let's listen to Glenn on this. That would require me to cut the volume.
The volume.
I want to bring in another voice here. It is Julian Assange's colleague, Glenn Greenwald. He's on the line. He's a longtime backer and proponent of WikiLeaks and Julian Assange. Glenn, thanks for taking the time this morning.
Sure. I'm not sure why you introduced me as a colleague of Julian Assange, since I'm not actually that. I've reported on him as a journalist, but I'm happy to be with you.
Well,
did you hear that? I missed that the first time around.
That was like one of the main things that he pushed back on, because he was like a colleague. He was like, I don't know why you called me that, because I'm not.
Well, I was working on other stuff while we were listening to this, but I didn't realize colleague of Julian Assange. How did he ever come to some conclusion that Glenn Greenwald is a colleague
There's
of Julian
a couple
Assange?
Inaccuracies that he says on this interview that
NPR,
Glenn Greenwald is having to correct him on.
If I'm not mistaken, NPR has started to, they had to get public. I mean, they had to get more than public funding, right? They have people advertising on their channels now. Well, NPR has let me down, let's say it that way.
Well, I would love if you could actually, just so people understand, characterize your relationship with him and with WikiLeaks.
Sure. I'm a Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist who has reported on WikiLeaks over the years, just like NPR has. And beyond that, I don't have any relationship with WikiLeaks or Julian Assange, and I'm not sure why you're trying to imply otherwise.
Have you been in contact with him today or leading up to this?
Are you serious? This is what this interview is going?
Did you read this?
I listened to, I swear to God.
What the hell did you listen to?
Maybe I was listening to the interview towards the end. This is pretty bad. He's starting off the interview saying as if these guys are in cahoots together, like they were in the embassy together. And Glenn Greenwald is like, what the hell are you talking about? Like, it's one thing if you say, I'm a reporter that's an advocate for Assange. You could be an advocate for Assange. I'm an advocate for Assange. It would be nonsense to characterize me being an advocate for Assange as in contact with Assange and in cahoots. What is fucking nonsense? Where is he getting this from? Like, there's nothing out there that would indicate that Glenn Greenwald is somehow... All right, let's start this over.
Let's not. Just play from here.
I want to bring in another voice here. It is Julian Assange's colleague, Glenn Greenwald. He's on the line. He's a longtime backer and proponent of WikiLeaks and Julian Assange. Glenn, thanks for taking the time this morning.
Sure. I'm not sure why you introduced me as a colleague of Julian Assange, since I'm not actually that. I've reported on him as a journalist, but I'm happy to be with you.
Well, I would love if you could actually, just so people understand, characterize your relationship with him and with WikiLeaks.
Sure, I'm a Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist who has reported on WikiLeaks over the years, just like NPR has, and beyond that, I don't have any relationship with WikiLeaks or Julian Assange, and I'm not sure why you're trying to imply otherwise.
Have you been in contact with him today or leading up to this?
No.
And what do you think of the charges against him?
Well, I agree with the Obama Justice Department, the Washington Post editorial of 2011, the Guardian editorial from yesterday, and the consensus of press freedom groups around the world, which is that prosecuting Julian Assange in connection with publishing secret documents that showed U.S. war crimes is one of the gravest threats to press freedom possibly imaginable. And the indictment that the DOJ issued says, among other things, that Assange, for example, encouraged Manning to get more documents than she had originally provided, which is something journalists, I don't know if you work with sources or not in your reporting, but I do. This is something journalists do every day. They say, thanks for getting me this. Is there any way you can get more of that? So to criminalize that, encouraging sources to get more classified documents, is to criminalize journalism. And I would hope no journalist would stand behind the Trump administration as it tries to do that.
So you believe even if the charges that we just heard about from the U.S. government, even if they are true, that Julian Assange was involved in actually cracking into the U.S. government and helping Manning, that would not go beyond the definition of journalism?
Well, it depends what they were able to prove. The Obama Justice Department tried for years to find evidence that Assange did more than work with Manning in the capacity that journalists typically work with sources, and concluded there was no evidence to be able to do that. They impaneled the grand jury in 2010 and spent years looking and said there was no evidence for that. Obviously, if Julian Assange actually hacked into a government database, that's just standard criminal hacking.
Yeah, understand what he means by this. It's like, look, if Julian Assange went into and hacked NASA,
Okay, fair enough.
that's hacking. That's a hacking crime. That's not an espionage crime. That's a hacking crime.
But for sheer journalism.
Yeah, but right. So his point is there's a difference. We're talking about him publishing information, and you're going after him for it. And they've been trying to get him for years. They had nothing on him for this. But now, all of a sudden, we're going after him as if he's a hacker. It's like, how do you prove that? Yeah, so let's let him finish.
But the indictment doesn't say that. The indictment says that Julian worked with Chelsea Manning and encouraged her in order to get these documents, which, again, is something journalists do all the time. We'll have to see what the evidence says. Right. Obviously, hacking is a crime, and just because you're a journalist doesn't mean you get to do that. But encouraging a source or working with a source to get documents is pure investigative journalism.
And if we set the larger debate about press freedom and how dangerous, as you say, this could be for press freedom, and a lot of disagreement out there over those issues. Could we look at what happened specifically with Julian Assange in terms of the law? I mean, the British say he broke the law by skipping bail. You have Swedish prosecutors who say that their case is not necessarily closed on allegations of sexual assault. And you have the Ecuadorian government saying he no longer deserved asylum. So is there anything that is outside the bound of legal processes taking place today, bringing him into custody?
This is the thing that aggravates me about media. It's like, and this is why I say, are they lying or are they incompetent? And I ask that all the time. I've been asking that for 2 or 3 years. Are they lying or are they incompetent? Because they ask stuff with this childlike innocence and naivety in the way they asked. He's like, is there anything outside the bounds of the law? I mean, it seems like the Swedish government, this is totally above board. I'm trying to go after him. And he goes into the embassy, and the British government is trying to get him for skipping bail. And the Ecuadorian government evicted him from the asylum. Now, what they're not saying here is Julian Assange has been publishing information that has been embarrassing the shit out of governments for the last several years. The United States, with the changeover of Trump, had an expressed interest in getting their hands on him, and was reaching through these various governments to do it. Julian Assange has said there was a bench warrant from the United States after him for the last several years. He ended up being right, which is why he was in the embassy. He didn't leave or skip bail in the UK just for shits and giggles to go on the beach. He went into an embassy to escape prosecution. I mean, he got asylum. Yeah. He didn't just skip bail. So let's be very clear. And the Ecuadorian government changed over powers to having a patsy to one that was very clear on its sovereignty, saying, yeah, we will give you asylum. This other government comes in office, and even the Washington Journal itself comes out with an article saying he gave up asylum. He was pressured for years, and Moreno eventually wiggled out of asylum through various just kind of nonsense, but ultimately got billions of dollars to give up Assange. Yeah. How do you not know that? Like how? Like even if
you're not commenting on that at all. You just...
I guess my thing is, if you're a journalist and you're asking that question, don't you have to? Like, how do you not include that into the question? Because if you don't include that into the question, you force the person who's answering the question to give all of that, as opposed to me. When I ask my questions of Galloway, I ask questions in a fully formed way because I want all of that stuff in when we're talking about it. This question is asked in a way of, look, all of this seems above board. Where's your issue here? You know, it's like, what's your beef with them trying to go after Julian Assange? You don't think he was a hacker? Yeah. And Glenn Greenwald has to make the point to him, who says he was a hacker? They said that he encouraged. That's what news media does all the time. And it's like, are you, a reporter from NPR, really trying to justify the United States government perspective that it's okay to go after somebody for being a publisher? Yeah. And don't you think that the United States government, particularly with regards to the way the CIA operates and soft power operates, the way the U.S. have these patsy governments, are you telling me that this doesn't smell to you? And he just asked this question like, you know, hey, isn't power doing exactly what it's supposed to do and everything is above board here? I mean, golly gee, what's your issue?
Yeah.
This is an aggravating fucking interview. And Glenn Greenwald has to kind of explain, like, you know, why are you as a journalist okay with this? Even in the beginning of, I'm a Pulitzer Prize winning journalist who just so happened to cover the work of Julian Assange. Just like you. Just like you. God, this is aggravating to watch. Or to listen to.
Well, the Ecuador had provided Julian Assange with asylum because they were concerned that his arrest would be used as a pretext to ship him to the U.S. to be prosecuted in connection with the publication of documents, and so that would be a persecution of him for his political liberties. And that's true today as it was 7 years ago. What changed is that the president of Ecuador for 6 years, who said to the U.S. and the U.K., we're not going to be bullied by you, was term limited out of office. The new president is much more submissive. The Trump administration has spent a year and a half trying to bully and coerce and pressure the Ecuadorian government to withdraw its asylum. So yeah, I think threatening
he was, and listen to his response.
Government to withdraw legally recognized asylum is a pretty severe violation of international law.
Right. Do you have evidence of that? I mean, do you have actual reporting that the Trump administration has exerted that kind of pressure?
Listen to that! That is an amazing thing to say.
Listen to his response.
I mean, that's an amazing thing for a reporter to say. Do you realize that in the United Nations, it had gotten to the point that the United States was bullying Ecuador on labeling breast milk, saying breast milk was the best milk to have. Yeah. And the United States, under the Trump administration, wanted the companies, they didn't want that because the companies didn't want that to be part of the UN's charter. And Ecuador was being bullied by the United States not to have breast milk as being the best milk. Russia had to come into play in order to save the day. But understand what we're like. A reporter doesn't know this. He's stunned by this. The United States has been exerting pressure on Ecuador? Do you have evidence of this, sir? This will be a bombshell. And he's like, Google it.
Right. We'll play his response.
God, this is aggravating. This is supposed to be NPR. Like, NPR is supposed to be this liberal media, this lefty media. This guy head is in a goddamn bubble.
There's tons of reporting about that. If you go to Google and type Trump administration pressures Ecuador over Assange, you'll find every major media outlet.
And by the way, I did that. And even the Wall Street Journal.
Well, he says after this, even NPR did.
In the world, and how you missed it. Probably NPR has reported it too, saying exactly that.
That's amazing.
He's like, fucking Google it.
Your own network has covered this, sir. Your own network.
Do you have evidence of this? It's all over the internet, and your people have even covered it.
Is he incompetent, or is he disingenuous? Do you see where I am? Like my wife, I think sometimes when I'm doing the news and I may be animated and she's like, I don't quite get it. I don't fully see it. But is it different now? Like when you're looking at the world the way I am with this, and this guy's on NPR. People drive to, listen to NPR all day in their head. The monotone voice of NPR just going through the airwaves, giving you the news in a very straight way, blah, 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 peaches and cream. That's how it is. It's just this, too soon. Too soon.
Sorry, my bad. Never mind.
But this monotone voice. And then you have women with these very nice, mellow, melodic voices, and men with these
not that old lady that's on there. That sounds like she is 137.
But she's been there for a while. She's been there for a while.
I
can't think of her name, but she's been there for a while. But most of the podcasts are just these monotone voices. And this guy is stunned. Now, when I asked, is he incompetent? Is that guy incompetent? Or is he being disingenuous? Which one is it?
I don't know, but
Exactly.
you want the same level of enthusiasm.
It's not enthusiasm, it's aggravation. It's because it's part of me like either he's so incompetent that he shouldn't be on the airwaves, or he's being entirely duplicitous, which says something about our media.
That's fine, but my thing is you want me to react how you react.
No.
Clearly.
No. I just want you to get the level of...
I can get it without...
No, man. If you got it, you would be doing those things. You would be making those movements.
I don't have to do
those
all
gyrations.
that. I can get it without angry gyrations.
Let's see. Bow like a leopard. Bow like a leopard is probably going to try to take the piss out of me. But let's check it. Let's see what they got.
Yeah, we got to get caught up on these super chats and Streamlabs.
There's nothing. It's just a bold like a leopard.
Now, bold like a leopard.
Ray says, thanks, Jamal. You have a friend in Chicago.
That was yesterday. So bold like a leopard gave a Streamlabs, but there's no text.
There's no text.
If there was supposed to be some text, let us know, because there's nothing
write
there.
the text.
Just write it and I'll go. But we need to catch up on the other ones. So Justin B, thank you for the super chat donation. Justin B says Tulsi, God dang it. Can you bring the super chats up on here?
Got you covered.
Okay, so Tulsi should dim exit, then go green to make sure she can get on the ballot. When Bernie gets cheated again, he could then join Tulsi on the ticket as VP. Since Biden can't beat Trump, this is our best chance to win in 2020.
That'll never happen. Justin B, you have no idea how much I appreciate you giving the super chat, but that is fanciful. Because understand, Bernie Sanders, it's clear after 2016 that Bernie Sanders, he's not, he wants a revolution to some degree, but he doesn't want there to be bloodshed in a revolution. I don't know what revolution that doesn't have bloodshed. I mean, politically, in this sense. He thinks that this can be done within the party structure. I had a conversation with Nina Turner, and I asked her, I think it was at the People's Summit or something, and I was like, what the hell is Sanders doing? I was like, why is he pushing in the party like this? She says he believes that he can get this stuff accomplished in the party, that it has to be done in the party structure. Look, there are two major parties in the United States. You can make an argument to me that if you want to get something real accomplished, that the structures that are in place from the party structure allows somewhat of an easier means of controlling the thing. But then there's this counter argument of, it may allow you to control it, but you never get it to control it in the first place. Meaning Sanders is never going to get to the point of power. You can look at the people who are this kind of anti-Sanders coalition that's come around them to try to keep Sanders out.
Right.
But Chavez got into power. And I don't want to make the correlation between the two because I know people, but I just mean radical movements have taken power in other countries that were far less democratic than the United States. So let's be very clear. A mass push for Sanders can win. Like, I am not in this camp that believes this is utterly impossible. Do I believe that they would try to cheat around the edges? Yes. Do I believe they would do it overtly? No. Because I believe that if they do it overtly, they will lose. I don't know how you pull that off. Like, how do you do it twice? The country already believes that you cheated the guy once. How do you turn around and do it twice and have any level of legitimacy from the standpoint of the party? I don't know how you do it. Right. Part of Tom Perez's job has been to give some level of optics of legitimacy of the party. That's part of it. Part of the reason why they open in debates like this is, all right, we're now going to fuck around. I'm just going to come on and just let this shit be. And then you have the anti-democratic people saying, we think Sanders could win this. How do we stop him without allowing people to realize that we've been trying to stop him? Yeah. That was the meeting. That was literally the message where they were like, if we hit him, we'll lose. So how do we hit him without hitting him? How do we find ways to stop him without his supporters not like essentially turning on the party as a whole? So clearly, my understanding of the world is their understanding of the world. Like this may be, I consider them an enemy, but it's an enemy that we agree on the terrain. It's like you're playing chess, and I believe that the center is valuable in the same way they believe that the center is valuable, and so both of us are playing for the center.
Right.
In this case, both of us believe that Sanders has a chance. So, gold star for that one. But the secondary part is, in believing that he has a chance, they also acknowledge that they know that people believe that they cheated them the first time around. That's not just us. That's them also, because we never shut up about it. So they absolutely know that this is part of it.
Yeah.
So then the question becomes, we have a problem. How do we stop Sanders without stopping Sanders? How do we make that
people
work?
Knowing that we're stopping Sanders.
We need to find ways to put our hands on him without us actually putting our hands on him, because the moment that we put our hands on him, they're going to cry foul and that they're rigging it and they're cheating him again. And then you can have a tape of Elizabeth Warren saying they rigged it. And then the very next day saying, no, they didn't rig it. And her looking crazy because, fair weather friend Elizabeth Warren. No, but you get my point. Like, the Sanders thing is a fascinating aspect. Now, this gets more interesting in superdelegates. Are superdelegates cheating? This is where you get into structural cheating, where you have this thing where the structure of the system itself is designed to have a particular result that is somewhat anti-democratic. Now, in their particular case, Sanders is trying to cozy up with the superdelegates now. So Hillary Clinton, last time around, had this salacious relationship with the superdelegates where she would get money from state coffers. Well, they believed that she was going to be giving money back to the states. Often, a lot of that, only like 2% of the money that she was raising from state systems was going back to the states. That's illegal, that Britain's campaign thing. She was laundering money. That was her trying to get around laundering money. But part of that also allowed her to secure superdelegate votes. Now, Sanders is trying to work with these guys in the superdelegates. Sanders is a problem, though. If you have meetings where both the House and the Senate are meeting to stop you, meaning both aspects of the party and both sides of this particular thing, the David Brocks of the world, all of these people are meeting to stop you, then it may be a hard sell for many of the superdelegates who are Democrats, dinosaurs, creatures of the party itself. Meaning those people might be more conservative just by virtue of who they are. Yeah. And may be a structural disadvantage for Sanders in this case. So Sanders needs to win it outright in the very first round in order to make sure that shit doesn't go right.
Come into play.
Right. So I would say register as a Democrat if only to vote for Sanders. After which point you can burn your card.
We gotta go to the next super chat.
All right, we got to go to the next super chat. But the Sanders thing is fascinating because this goes into a larger conflict. The DCCCs and what it's doing in trying to stop grassroots candidates goes in line with this. There is a war for the soul of the Democratic Party. The mainstream media is not seeing this. They're not fully reporting on this, but it's there. It's there. And it can't get full expression in this primary. Because if anything that's said in this primary is going to be used to attack the candidate when the candidate runs against Donald Trump. So there's a certain tone downness. Hillary Clinton and Obama could go head to head full on because there was also a Republican primary that was going full on. There was an open presidency. Bush had ran his expired 2 years. This is not that. This is Donald Trump waiting with his Twitter account for anything that one of them says for the other to tweet it out saying, crazy Bernie just said this about, that type of stuff. So it has been a civil contest, but there's a war, man. That war is brewing. And I am ecstatic about this because this is the first opportunity that we get where we may see a hegemonic shift in what is considered or what goes for the Democratic Party. Let's go to the next one.
All right, next super chat from GDNPB. He says, in John Holdren, Obama's Science SAR book, he says, depopulation will be done by sterilization in food and water with large habitation zones using the Rockefeller Chinese model of living in control. John Holdren's book.
Obama's Science SAR. I have to check that one out.
Yeah, maybe write that down.
I can't attest or deny. I mean, I don't know what the book.
I'm not familiar with that.
Yeah, and I don't even know the context. Like, I don't know if the context is just based on the route that we're going in regards to.
Go to Streamlabs, or can you click on Streamlabs and I'll read this one. Charles Pereira, thank you, Charles. He says, Biden at 30-point advantage in some polls, they'll do this type of manipulation. They'll say, look at the polls, there was no cheating.
Super chats.
Yeah.
You can view super chats in the Streamlab donations tab. Well, she looks at it
That's
this way.
Balthazar.
Yeah, that's Balthazar. Because we look at other.
I've addressed this already, Balthazar. Okay, damn it. I know that I can read super chats another way. Usually I don't get this behind, so I apologize, but I know that I can follow that link. And I know that's you because you didn't clear out your thing because your name is in the link.
But the problem is you can't see all of them. Like, we look at the other chats. Like, I know, like, on Door's show, he only reads super chats. We read others also.
We read everything.
We read.
Plus, not only that, but there are times when Jamal is commenting on something and there's a lot of chat about it. There's a lot of, what is the word I'm looking for? People are talking about it in the chat, and I want to pick up some of those topics as well. So if I was only looking there, I wouldn't get some of those other ones. But we do have another one from Jay Scott.
Wait. Charles Ferrer, Biden at 30-point advantage in some polls. Oh, you did? Okay, I'm sorry. I was reading Jay Scott's while you were reading that one. That's why I was laughing. But
Jay Scott says, Chomsky said it back in 2016, voting should take 5 minutes. The rest is activism. And I love you. Don't even discuss third parties anymore. Sheepdog. Didn't they send an email? Didn't they send an email saying the Green Party was no longer a party?
Oh, so let me explain that. So there are two Green parties. There's like the Green Party, there are two Green parties, and one of them is gone defunct. That's essentially what it boiled down to. Did you see this ST explanation I posted?
Somebody said in Islam I would have gotten backhanded.
Trudy, did you see the superdelegate explanation we posted in Patreon? Yes, we did see that. Trudy, we did see that.
So thank you
very much. For the Jay Scott's thing, Chomsky, voting should take 5 minutes. Yes, voting should take 5 minutes, but voting should also be done for somebody who represents your interests. And there are times where voting for somebody that does not represent your interests does not get you further along. That's what I disagree with Chomsky on. Chomsky believed that you should vote for Clinton. I don't. If we would have voted for Clinton, this conversation about getting some revolutionary change in this country doesn't exist. I'm sorry. Like, under Chomsky's model, Clinton is in office. And some grotesque figure is going to run in the presidency in the next term and may beat her. So let's be very clear. As bad as Donald Trump is, Donald Trump hasn't necessarily started another war with Russia or a world war, based on what some of the stuff Hillary Clinton was doing. So I disagree with Chomsky on this point. Vote for somebody who represents your interests, man. If that's in the Democratic Party,
if there's nobody there that represents your interests,
yeah, vote their party. Why not? I mean, like, I would vote if Tulsi or Sanders didn't accede to the presidency, I would be voting for whoever is put up in the Green Party. I mean, I am militant on this notion of voting for who represents your interests. It's just so happened, in this case, one of my candidates represents my interests in the race. I've been intellectually honest on this, and I don't think I've deviated on this. Sanders was my horse. I said it earlier. I never changed on it.
Somebody said because you called Kamala Harris a dark horse, you were racist.
No, the African American thing is somewhat racist. The dark horse thing, not so much. And I've stopped saying the African American thing because I realized.
Did you used to say that?
I did used to say that. Well, I think it's funny, and I don't have a racist bone in my body any more than anybody else. So it wasn't coming from that. It's more just funny.
Okay.
But yes, Trudy. And J-ish. That's one of those ish things. No, I don't talk third parties because my candidate is not in the third party. If Bernie Sanders came out and went to a third party, I would be on this thing breathlessly screeching about third parties. But fair point. Ish. No, that's not a fair point. I don't think that's a fair point. The more I think about it, no, I'm disagreeing now. My only argument that I've always ever had, vote for the candidate that represents your interests. That's it. It's not one party, it's not, with this notion that it's always the Republican Party. It's not one or the other. My argument was always, it's both. Vote for who represents your interests.
Right.
If they happens to be a Democrat, have at it. If they happens to be a third party, have at it. My argument was also to not get bullied into voting for somebody just because you're terrified of the other guy. And that was the argument that was taking place during the Trump-Clinton thing. My argument also was, in an odd way, you would get further along to some degree with Trump. Because, under Clinton, it's like, there is no pushback. There's no nothing. Like it's like this stuff just kind of dies under her weight. Nobody is going to run against her in the next 4 years. It doesn't matter what Clinton did. Yeah. Clinton could have came into office, could have privatized Social Security, and if Ted Cruz was running against her, they would have still voted and told you to go out there and vote for Hillary Clinton. That gets you nowhere. Like it's like you're so terrified of the Republican Party that you accept anything from the Democratic Party. That's a non-proposition in regards to some level of change or progress. It's not that I love that Trump won. It's that I like that Clinton lost. So, that's what it is. But I don't think I've changed. It's just so happened that Bernie Sanders was running as a Democrat. So, if Sanders loses, Tulsi loses, let's have that conversation then. All right, we have one last one, and this has been going on for 2 hours.
So let me do the spiel real quick before we do the last one and then finish up. So we have about 290 people here. Make sure you hit the like button. Again, if you are just joining us, you've missed quite a few good topics.
In fact, not to just jump in.
But you do.
As a de facto. But if you enjoy the content, and there's no way that people are going to remember what I'm just saying, so me jumping in, I shouldn't have jumped in like that, so I apologize.
But you did.
I'm going to apologize. Definitely like the videos if you like the videos. And I know it's sometimes hard. I sometimes forget when I'm watching videos or watching content. I like The Great War. That's one of my favorite channels.
I didn't start liking videos until
your boo started doing the news. That's when it all started.
No. One of the ladies that I follow in another genre of YouTube videos was just getting started, and I really, really liked her, and I really, really wanted her to succeed. And she talked a little bit about how liking the video, sharing, subscribing, and watching the video to the end, the algorithms that YouTube puts in place actually do help the channel. But yes, if you like the video, please feel free to give it, please feel free to give it a thumbs up. That's weird. Give it a thumbs up. But also I say that because I learned a couple, let me finish what I'm saying.
I don't want them to give it a thumbs up. I want them to click like.
Okay. Give it a digital thumbs up by clicking the like button. Is that better? What I was going to say before I was really interrupted again, hit the like button, but crap. Oh, what I learned a couple of weeks ago was if you're watching the video, the more likes that it gets, it pushes it up somewhere so that more people join. So it makes it more visible. So that's why when you're doing a live video, they say, give it a thumbs up, because
more people to see it.
Then it gets more people to see it. So, but yes, this is our weekly patron appreciation. This is the only show that I do to give a little bit of
a show.
I'm not complaining. But I come on.
I don't know what the show would be though. That's the only thing.
I come on weekly for this patron appreciation, aka contributor appreciation. For once a week, we pull topics off of the patron appreciation suggestions and give you this content. So it's a thank you for all of the support everywhere, whether it's through Patreon or PayPal or Super Chat, or the support just by subscribing, which is one reason why we kind of try to follow the chats and engage the people who are here and make sure that we're not missing anything. So this is the weekly thank you show. So thank you.
Yes. And this story is awesome.
What story?
This story is
this a story we're supposed to be doing?
Yeah, it is.
Now, this last story...
By the way, one of the other news tidbits that we picked up... you paused. You didn't pause? I thought that was
No, I paused and then I was leading into the next thing.
But you hadn't said anything yet.
Yes, I did. I paused and I said, so the next story...
Was it audible air?
No.
Okay, so that was a pause.
No, listen to what I'm saying. I paused. And I said, so the next story, and that's when you interjected in the middle of my sentence after the pause.
Okay, go ahead then.
The next story is from a patron, Deborah Hamilton, wants us to talk about how the DNC possibly colluded.
Oh, it wasn't possibly.
Or worked in the background to try to get dirt on Trump from Ukraine.
This is why I love the Russia thing so much. And when I say love, I mean absolutely hate.
Irony.
No, it's hypocrisy. That's the word you're looking
Oh
for.
yes, that is
Utter,
the bad
complete,
word.
rank, flaming in the night sky hypocrisy. In the light of day. Like they're going after him for unreality right now. Bob Barr now is the bad guy now. There's a cover up at the Justice Department. Do you know they had a spook had a honeypot? They sent a honeypot to Trump's.
You just like to say the word honeypot.
I like the word honeypot, but it should disturb us that the CIA, or let's say the intelligence services, are spying on a president in this way, trying to elicit information. Now, here's the catch. If you believe that the president of the United States is a Russian plant, okay, you need to have something a hell of a lot more, or a campaign is a Russian plant, and it just so happens the opposition campaign to the person that's in. You need to have some pretty damn good evidence, like some inspiration. Now, this can't just be opposition research by your opponent. It has to be a little bit more than that. And getting the FISA warrant or the spy, all of this is dicey. This should at the very least be looked into it. So the New York Times comes out with a bombshell that says not only did they send a spy, there was a second spy that went along with the first spy that called herself a research assistant that was really an asset that was either the CIA or the FBI. Papadopoulos thinks he believes it was the CIA. The other people say it's the FBI. And that this person was flirting with Papadopoulos. At one point saying, I look forward to our future together. Like this this out there stuff. That's amazing. That's some Soviet Union shit. Like that's what we're talking about. And so Barr coming out saying, look, we need to figure out why they were spying on a campaign, especially when they found that there was nothing there. It's like if Batman kills somebody, Batman going to jail. It doesn't matter if Batman had good intentions. Batman just ignored the rights of the individual itself and broke the law and killing somebody. So if the intelligence services are saying they're using something to spy on the president, Mueller could have taken Donald Trump out of that office. If Mueller came back with anything, regardless of how small, they would have taken Trump out of that office.
Oh, did you see? There was a pause.
No, it wasn't.
So I'm gonna say
there was no pause.
There was a pause, and you put your hand down and everything.
There was no pause.
Like you were like.
There was no pause.
I counted to like 2.5.
You did not. We can re-roll the video.
Okay, so did you see where
I probably didn't.
Omarosa was on Al Sharpton talking about they told her not to turn documents over that could have played a part in the Mueller report?
No, I didn't see that.
You got to look at that.
But, at this point, Omarosa has said something.
I can't believe they let Omarosa on TV.
Well, she has, but she
and then
probably
back
knows
on
where
Al
the
Sharpton.
bodies are buried.
Well,
like,
she says that there were like 7 boxes of documents that they told her to leave behind. And as of right now, she knows that 5 of those boxes have been destroyed. They were supposed to be turned over and been part of the Mueller report. She trying to get another check from some kind of way or something.
Mueller, look, they gave the Democrats got everything they wanted. Honestly, everything that they wanted. Hillary Clinton loses an election to reality show hosts. And because the country is freaked out by this, a lot of people didn't allowed stuff to take place that shouldn't have taken place. Meaning they allowed for 3 years this narrative that the president of the United States was somehow a Russian plant and a Russian agent. This has consequences. This has consequences for the foreign policy of what that person does when he gets in office. Meaning you can't have conciliatory relationships with this country now because any relationship is taken through the context of, he's just doing this because he's a Russian agent. That type of stuff. So right off the bat, this person who comes in office with this more détente type, this, Nixon having détente, this type of stuff, is now have to be more of hawkish, more of a neocon. So you get the Boltons, you get the Pompeos running the house. With regards to foreign policy, even with regards to Russia, the place that he said he wanted to be more conciliatory towards. This has consequences, severe consequences. But they don't find anything. Mueller comes back and says nothing. Barr says we need to figure out how all of this started. And the Democrats at this point are like, oh my God, he's going to investigate how this started. Of course he's going to investigate how this started. You guys told the American public for 3 years that there was conspiracy theory. And we need to know whether or not there was sufficient reasoning to go and do that to go into that investigation. Because if you're going to tell me that due diligence is this investigation had to be done on what we know of Donald Trump, then due diligence also says then investigation also needs to be had into the reasons for the investigation to the president that showed up that there was squat to bring these on. And I would imagine that there are a lot of people who are freaked out by that reality. Because a lot of people are assuming that this stuff is not sinister. Like people weren't behind the scenes doing things that kind of within the realm of the power that they had, pushing the envelope a bit. So what's her name? Allowing Hillary Clinton to get off. It starts there.
Yeah.
Loretta Lynch pushing back on elements of the Comey staff said they did try to get Hillary Clinton, but those people who were instrumental in letting Clinton off also ended up being instrumental in getting Donald Trump into these kind of Russia stuff, some of these warrants. My point is this: there are several people who were part of this process, Strzok, McCabe, Comey, that look dicey in this, and even Lynch, maybe even Obama. However it is, in the same way that they did an investigation into Trump and they found to be nothing there, they also need to do an investigation into how on earth did you guys justify investigating a political campaign and spying on a political campaign for President of the United States? And were there political motives of the people that were involved in starting this process? How can you not ask that question when what has come out turned out to be bunk?
Yeah. All right, hold on. Balthazar says, why did they send a honeypot? Why did they send a honeypot towards Trump?
It was on Papadopoulos.
Clearly, Xi Jinping of China would be a much better target. He looks like Winnie the Pooh. Oh, bother.
God, he got me. I thought he was being serious. Like usually when I'm reading it, I can see the entirety of it, so I can, So it's like, why would he send a honeypot to it? It's like, no, he sent it to Papadopoulos.
This one is, wait, can you pull up the story that Deborah Hamilton, your patron, put up? Yeah, but that's a different article.
This is the exact same article that you sent in the email.
No, the one I sent
was this one.
Well, where's the video? This
video?
Is the one.
Well, the video is probably already played.
Oh, okay. Go back then.
Jeez. You see the shit I have to put up with? That's why.
That's why what, babe?
Nothing. That's why nothing. Alright, these fucking commercials, man.
Is anybody seeing commercials when they view your show?
Thing is, I don't. You know what? I was even one of the things that I was talking about with my marketing advisor with regards to the show. Fiverr has the ability to put up commercials or even banners. Like, so in the same way that I have, these guys you in it?
Yeah, those guys.
Right, so let's take a listen to this. And just so we give a heads up of the story, because I don't think we told the story. The DNC were trying to elicit information about Donald Trump from the Ukrainian embassy. Now, if I'm not mistaken, this had to do with the relationship to Manafort and reaching out to the president of the Ukraine.
Asking him to help get dirt on Trump.
Yes.
And they sent a young lady over. We'll have to go back because I don't remember her name off the top of my head.
Well, we just played
the
basics.
Oh, okay. Go ahead. Play the video. Then we can clarify.
All right. Let's watch the video.
We got to turn the volume on.
Why can't I hear them? Oh, I know why. Because I muted the site.
Ooh.
Sometimes when we used to do triggers. Do you know what a trigger is? In a database,
Triggered.
Yeah, trigger warning. In a database, triggers were these things that if something happened, something else happened. So think of it like a little bit of code that's just kind of working behind the scenes in a database that flips off. So let's say a person joins, it turns from 0 to yes, and allows a person to account. Trigger. Like, it doesn't have to work in that sense, but it could be some of anything. This number turns to 10, now something's fired off that does something else in the database.
Is this a soup question?
Those used to be some of the most annoying things because sometimes you would forget the fact that that trigger exists and you're looking at it like, why is this happening? I don't understand what is happening. I don't figure out what is happening. It's a little trigger in the background. Always check.
Trigger the volume, trigger the video.
Kind of like what I used to say, always check the volume. Always check for triggers. Always check for triggers.
Get information on Trump campaign
You gonna start
associates.
over?
Do you think that rises
Nope.
to the level of attempted collusion on their part?
We'll have to see.
Yeah. So finally, we have some forthcoming reporting that there was an effort by the DNC to work with the Ukrainian government in order to get information on Trump campaign associates. Do you think that rises to the level of attempted collusion on their part?
We'll have to see.
Yeah.
I do know, as Mark just said, you had the Clinton campaign pay the law firm Perkins Coie, who hired Glenn Simpson and Fusion GPS, who went and did what? Hired a foreigner, Christopher Steele, who then talked to some Russians and put together this thing we call the dossier, which was a bunch of garbage. National Enquirer, baloney, salacious, unverified, untrue, but they shopped it all around to the press in this town and all kinds of people running it through to the Justice Department, from Nellie Orr through Bruce Orr and to other people. They did all this and they got the FBI to bite on it. And the FBI took that document and used it as the basis to get a warrant to go spy on the Trump campaign. Mm-hmm. So if you look at any political campaign who was working with foreigners, it was the Clinton campaign working with foreigner Christopher Steele, who was talking with Russians to put together a fake document. Yeah.
God, man.
Look at his face.
This is a fucking Republican. Like, this is where we are in our political climate. Like, they've pretzeled themselves to such a degree where the Republican Party comes out and says, all right, if we're going to have this notion of collusion, let's talk about collusion. Where did the Steele dossier come from? How did you get your hands on the dossier? Oh, wait, are you saying that you went to the Brits, a British agent, MI6 agent, and then from that agent went into Moscow in order to try to get information? And so, to try to hit Donald Trump with, and then to shop that information all throughout the intelligence services, like getting these guys to essentially open up a criminal case on salacious information that spies on the president. And the question becomes, how does that happen?
Yeah.
How do you not ask that? Am I insane on this? Like, how do you
Clearly not.
How do you not ask that basic question? Now, this is a Republican who's usually, I would disagree probably with everything that would typically come out of his mouth. And on this one, yeah, a broken clock. A broken clock.
That's not a good picture right there.
Even the question of suppressing some testimony from Ukrainians. So it smells bad, and hopefully we'll get some investigation going into it and figure.
Yeah, you should, because again, if the Democratic Party has spent the last 3 years pushing for an investigation of Donald Trump, how can you not push for an investigation into this? But they're not.
Wah, wah.
And by the way, this is.
Can I read some of it?
Yeah.
All right, so in written answers to questions, Ambassador Valerie Chali's office says DNC contractor Alexandra Chalupa sought information from the Ukrainian government on Paul Manafort's dealings inside the country in hopes of forcing the issue before Congress. Chalupa later tried to arrange for Ukrainian President Petro Poroshenko to comment on Manafort's Russian ties on a U.S. visit during the 2016 campaign. Chali says that in the time of the contacts in 2016, the embassy knew Chalupa primarily as a Ukrainian American activist and learned only later of her ties to the DNC. Wow. He says the embassy considered her request an inappropriate solicitation of interference in the U.S. election. He says the embassy got to know Ms. Chalupa because of her engagement with Ukrainian and other diasporas in D.C.
By the way, literal intervention. I mean, the moment that you try to get a question asked to the president of the Ukraine that adversely affects one of the political opponents. Like, that's amazing.
Speaking of intervention.
That's amazing.
And intervening.
But Trump and Russia.
The embassy got to know Ms. Chalupa because of her engagement with Ukrainian and other diasporas in D.C. and not in her DNC capacity. We've learned about her DNC involvement later, he said in a statement issued by his embassy. We were surprised to see Alexandra's interest in Mr. Paul Manafort's case. It was her own cause. The embassy representatives
unanimously.
No. The embassy representatives unambiguously refused to get involved in any way.
Oh, you weren't even close.
As we're convinced that this is strictly a U.S. domestic matter. That's what my brain wanted to take it, but that's not where it needed to go.
So just so I'm very clear, they wanted to get information on Manafort from the Ukrainian government because they know that he had dealings with the Ukrainian government.
Right.
And in trying to get this information, this person worked at the Ukrainian embassy, but they found also worked at the DNC.
Right. They thought that she was just an American Ukraine activist, and then she had ties.
And come to find out, not so much. She also worked for the DNC. Now, this is also them trying to get her to plant a question to Poroshenko, the Ukrainian president at the time.
Right, because just to clarify, specifically, they said that she did this with a purpose to initiate hearings on Paul Manafort or letting an investigative journalist ask President Poroshenko a question about Manafort during his public talk in D.C.
Wow. That's a big deal.
This is what the ambassador
because that's a
said.
direct intervention. Like, that's not quasi. That's the Democratic National Committee or the Democratic Party having somebody in the embassy, essentially a plant, a spook, a spy in the embassy, and having that spook, a spy, not being legit with the embassy, which is supposedly another country, and is trying to get information on Manafort to hit the other opponent with, meaning trying to go into a foreign government to get information to hit the opponent with, and trying to get questions asked to the president of that country in order to cast a certain light on Trump.
It's like, can we bring this up with the president?
That's what I'm
saying.
Like, but these are political campaigns. Like, they're trying to win office, and the question becomes, what do you have that you're supposed to do to win office? And in this case, they knew Manafort was dirty, and the question becomes, how do we get dirt on Manafort? And all right, we need somebody in the embassy. Hey, there's a help wanted ad. Let's send somebody help wanted. And hey, it might even be help wanted. It might have been, I'm friends with the president, and so we're going to allow them to put this person in who I just recommended for this role. I mean, after all, these are two major parties. They're going to be members who are in governmental systems, meaning Congress or Senate, that can interact with these governments. Why not?
Yeah.
You know, it makes all the sense in the world that one of these guys could say, hey, I have a niece that needs a job. Can we put her in the embassy? Or, we're friends. Or however that person got into there as a plant. Let's just be very clear. That person was a plant and that person was trying to elicit information. Didn't somebody get prosecuted for doing something like this? I could have swore somebody got prosecuted for something similar. But this is wild, man. When did the story come out? This was like a day or so ago.
Mm-hmm. On the 2nd.
The 2nd. Wow. How do you, with a straight face, say Trump and Russia? And how do you not investigate this also? The moment that you set the precedent of investigating Trump for 3 years, don't you also set the precedent for this?
You would think so. However,
I think I'm going to let you do this story by itself on the show.
Let who do it?
Yeah. Well, you know it well.
That's funny.
And so I'll let you just gonna have it show for like 5 minutes.
You know what show I want to do? You know what show I want to do?
Hair videos.
Don't be an asshole.
Cat videos.
I don't even like cats. Maybe puppy videos. No, I want to do. So last weekend we went to the Bernie Sanders campaign.
No,
meeting.
the organizational thing. Yeah.
I want to talk about that. We also met Trisha. I remember that name.
Nobody knows who Trisha is.
Trisha knows who the hell Trisha is, and that's enough. There were people who recognized Jamal when we went to this meeting. Trisha was one of them, and she sat and talked with us for a while. She's from Richmond, or she's in Richmond. And then there's another gentleman that you talked to that I didn't get his name.
Yeah, that was.
But there were a couple of people, and there's another lady that was there. Was like, I know you. Don't you have a YouTube channel? And then like she must have like messaged somebody that she was there with Jamal because she was like, so and so said hi. I don't know. I don't remember that person's name either. But I want to talk about like some of the things that they said and maybe show the video and some of the pictures and stuff like that from that.
Well, I
would do a separate video
there
from that.
holding my phone for like 15 minutes, and then the video's live.
It's available.
It's already live. Yeah.
He was recording, so we went to I want to say rally, but that's not what it was. More like a campaign meeting where they were talking about grassroots and everything they're doing with the Bernie campaign.
They're trying to get a million supporters.
He spoke. He came on live. Bernie Sanders and Nina Turner and a couple of the people from his camp came on and broadcast live. And when it came on, Jamal pulled his phone up and recorded it because he wanted to get it to share for later. It's available.
I thought it would be great for the show.
I agree, but it dawned on me that it was probably going to be somewhere, but at that time he had already been holding it up for a couple minutes. But that's the video that I want to talk about. So maybe we can do that separately. Yeah, like an organization kickoff, somebody said.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. Organizational kickoff. They
were talking about tips and what to do and what you can do. Introduced a new app that they have. That's the first time that I've ever been to something like that, so I thought it was interesting. Pretty well organized too. So that's
what the hell is
that's
this?
good when you're talking about organizing.
Biden 36%. Oh, well, that just tells you who they are.
All right, we're done.
All right, is
Are
there
we
anything
finished?
else?
Let's just go back and make sure that we got all of our Trisha Nixon. Somebody said.
Is that her name?
Was
she here?
I didn't know her.
That would be amazing if she was here.
I didn't get her last name. Somebody said Trisha Takanawa. I don't know who these people are. And
that's my point. That the moment you say Trisha,
I think they're fucking with me.
They're like,
oh, okay.
So
this
Trisha.
is so funny story because you go on tangents. So I used to work at Target.
Did you?
When I was in college, yeah, I used to work at Target and like I was on crutches. So instead of working like the store, they put me in the dressing room where you do customer service. And so that also means that like when somebody calls in and says, they need to be transferred to shoes.
She did, however,
then you're the one that directs the call. And like if somebody needs to be called on overhead, you do that as well. Mm-hmm. Well, this was a while ago. And the guy that works in the music, this is when they sold CDs in the store too, but the guy that works well, maybe they still do. Anyway, the guy that works in the music department pranked me. And he said there was a guest that needed to be called overhead because the family was looking for them, and it was Kanye West. And so I got on the speaker and I was like, Kanye West, your party is waiting for you in the electronics section or something, because I didn't know who the hell it was yet. But that was actually pretty funny. But yeah. So they're saying that, yeah, they were tricking me. I don't know Trisha's last name. She was really nice. She talked to us.
She was nice. We sat there and talked for like 10, 15 minutes.
Yeah.
I'm a chatterbox in person too. So, Rachel Maddow, sympathy for war criminals.
Please don't make me watch Rachel Maddow.
That Russia was interfering in Venezuela and propping up the Venezuelan dictator there. Turns out President Trump now says Putin isn't doing that at all because Putin told him so. You see the headline in Bloomberg News today. Trump says Putin not involved in Venezuela despite U.S. claim. So Putin says he's not doing it. And so President Trump believes it. And so, hey, John Bolton, hey, Mike Pompeo, are you guys enjoying your jobs right now? You each thought your job this week was to name and shame and threaten and counter Russian government involvement in Venezuela while saber rattling about how everybody else better get out of the way because the U.S. is really mad about it. Guys, turns out your actual job is figuring out how and why you work for a president who says whatever Vladimir Putin tells him.
Rachel Maddow is doing a segment, Sympathy for War Criminals. Ain't that amazing? Like, oh, John Bolton, it's so hard to be your job right now because your president is, being told to do whatever he wants to do by Putin. Here's the problem with this statement. And here's the problem with a lot of this. Right here. Right here. That. That's the problem with this. New York Times, front page. Mueller finds no Trump-Russia conspiracy. Washington Post, which probably hurt them to their heart to write. Mueller finds no conspiracy. And yet, Rachel Maddow continues to dig the ditch. Is it possible that Trump doesn't believe that Russia is involved in Venezuela from the standpoint of Maduro leaving because he knows Pompeo is full of shit? Is that possible? Like, I mean, come on. Let's stop fucking around. Pompeo, if you honestly believe that Maduro was about to leave, I have a bridge on Mars to sell you that has a plant and a planetarium on the side of it with sprinkling, furs and all this other stuff. It's all fucking nonsense. Maduro wasn't going anywhere because there's no mass uprising for Guaidó. Meaning there's no reason for him to leave. Yes, the United States is trying to pressure him out, but that's nonsense. Pompeo is a liar. Pompeo lies for a living. Pompeo has said as much that he lies for a living on stage to loud applause. I lie for a living. That's what I do. I'm Mike Pompeo. And people were, cheering him for this. Like, yes, he lies. It's utter, like the depravity of this. Like, so there's no reason to believe anything that comes out of Pompeo's mouth. I'm pretty sure Donald Trump knows that. Donald Trump knows a liar when he sees him because Donald Trump is a pretty good liar himself. And so he hear Pompeo, he's like, I talked to Putin, and in this point, they've just shown that there was no conspiracy. I have a freer hand in having conversations with Russia, so yeah, I'm going to talk to them for a fucking hour. What are you going to do about it? You've just shown, based on your own guys' posts, that there was no collusion. This is the media. This is the narrative. This is the story. What bridge are you, or what ditch are you guys still digging? Rachel Maddow continues. If there was no conspiracy between Trump and Russia, then why on earth would a call from Vladimir Putin and Trump be anything other than a call from Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump? She's still continuing to dig this ditch based on the hysteria that she created for the past 3 years. That's my point. And does so in a way that's sympathetic to a bunch of war criminals. She's supposed to be a lefty. Think about that. Go back and look at the old shows with Rachel Maddow and George W. Bush. For that matter, look at the old shows with Keith Olbermann and George W. Bush. Those shows are epic. Like prescient. Because at that point, she can use her intelligence and she can use her political acumen to put a knife in a monster. You know what I mean? But she can do it honestly. Because George Bush had invaded a country and was, on a pretext of a thing. But this is nonsense. This is nonsense. Like, this is the perch that this woman is falling from. Somebody who's supposed to be a Rhodes Scholar. And the question becomes, how can you be this? Like, is it just because you've... I think I know what it is. I know exactly what it is. It's H.A. Goodman. It's the H.A. Goodman paradox. You come out and you do a show. And you scream at the height of your lungs that, look, Hillary Clinton is going to lose. And I am H.A. Goodman, and I've written 1,000 articles attesting to such. And she lost. Ha, 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 you cheated my guy. And you do this, and people latch onto your channel, and they love your channel for it. You've been hitting the Clintons hard. You're going after the Clintons hard. You're going after them viciously so. You're a Bernie guy. You're a lefty. And you have all these right-wingers now on your site. What do? You know what I mean? You have 100,000 subscribers. Most of them because of how much you hate Hillary Clinton and how much you've attested to such. So all of these lefty ideology, gone. You have a wife and kid to feed. And now not just a wife and kid to feed. Now you're out there doing shooting videos. You were supporting Bernie Sanders. How the fuck are you supporting, it's like, how does that transition work outside of, okay, maybe there's an incentive to do that other than just kind of being their way in a political inclination. Is that the same thing with Maddow? Maddow goes out and screams hysteria for 3 years, a Trump and Russia conspiracy, and then in the light of day is shot down by Mueller, the person who she turned into a saint over the course of this time period. She gets on camera and cries because she realized, oh God, all of my credibility has just been swallowed up. But the people who were looking for her don't care. She can still continue to dig this ditch. And do you go back and repudiate yourself and says, look, guys, I'm sorry, I got it wrong. I thought there was something here. I got it wrong. I think Trump is a horrible, disgusting figure. I got it wrong. And let's get to real things. Look at the housing crisis. Look at the people who don't have places to live. Look at the people, yes, they're working jobs, but they're working multiple jobs, despite this thing of a roaring economy. Look at the income inequality. I have a lot of shit to talk about. Let's get to real things. But that's not what happens. It's, all right, this was profitable. There are people who still hate his guts while he's in office. I'm on MSNBC. I'm a political actor. Let's keep digging this ditch. People don't care. They didn't care about whether it was true before. So why do they care now? Let's keep going in this direction. And so this conversation, she doesn't care about the consequences of this, meaning from the standpoint of foreign policy, she's supposed to be a fucking lefty. This is the person who I learned that only 1 to 2% of the military, of the United States is in the military. I learned it from Maddow. Flying killer robots. I got that term from Richard Maddow. So I'm trying to give you this thought of when Bush was in office, she was left on this stuff. It's aggravating to watch this devolvement of an individual.
So don't watch it. Don't watch it.
I have to look into the
Just
darkness.
Turn away.
For my channel.
Just turn away.
I have to look. I'm the man on the wall.
I'm turning away. I'm not watching Rich Maddow.
Oh, there was a super chat.
No.
Babe, it just popped up right here. It pops up over here.
You mean a Streamlabs?
Well, both pop up over here. Super chat pops up like a second later.
It must have been a Streamlabs.
Did you find it? Babe? Babe? Did you get it?
Balthazar says, it seems as though Dems and especially HRC have a bad habit of not thinking through actions to probable future negative consequences. Who knew?
No, I don't believe that. I don't believe that at all. It's self-interest. Well, maybe hubris. Maybe. Like, I don't think they're stupid. Like, so I don't think it's like I give you an example. So you go with this notion of well, no, maybe he's right. Maybe he's right because some of it was stupid. Like cheating Sanders was stupid. Like there was a chance that she could have won that contest fair and square. She would have had all the legitimacy in the world to say, "Look, I won it. You may not like me, I won it. You know, give me your vote." But the moment that you cheat, people who didn't want to vote for you now have a reason to not vote for you, and they're going to look at you in a certain way, and they're going to look at the party in a certain way. You lose legitimacy. So in that sense, yeah. But I think some of this is hubris. Like it's this wager of, do they put a monster in that office or do they put me in that office? And how close to the nail can I get it? If that makes sense. Like where I have to get as least as I can possibly give in order to get over the finish line. That type of politics.
Balthazar said that was clearly a joke, hence the smiley face. But you know he was going to respond anyway.
But I think there's reality to it. I mean, it might have been a joke, but it's not necessarily a unreal joke. Like,
no, it's not untrue.
Yeah,
but
there's a reality to it. It's hard to know whether or not they're bad planners, because the cheating of Sanders was stupid. That was bad politics. As for coming up, it depends on what their priority is. If their priority is to win, then all of them should have just collapsed behind Sanders. Nobody's going to do that. But that would have been, the amount of support that he has from the standpoint of grassroots, combining that with the amount of the support he would have, the other Democrats who would just jump in just because of a Democrat is a Democrat is a Democrat. That would crush, especially if they're backing him. But the question is, would they back him? In the same way Jeremy Corbyn has trouble getting Labor's leadership to back him, Sanders is going to have also trouble on that point.
Yeah.
If you had a President Sanders, considering that Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer was in an anti-Sanders meeting, does a President Sanders get Pelosi or Schumer to push his agenda through? And does that mean that you need to essentially eviscerate both? I consider this a war. And I consider this a war from the standpoint of within the Democratic Party itself, because I don't think anything gets accomplished while the party is what it is. Which means that they need to be removed. They got to be taken out of their seats. When Sanders wins, and all of those Organization for Sanders meetings that he had all throughout the United States should not stop. They should at that point be a foot army. Mm-hmm. And I don't mean in a foot army in a Gestapo way. I mean a foot army in a sense of compelling politicians to come to various areas, bugging the shit in these mass phone calls meetings, bugging the shit out of them in sit-ins, in the various meetings of Democrats. I have no intention or no belief that you're going to get Republicans on your side. So, I don't plan on it. My objective is not necessarily to be conciliatory or to be to reach to the other party. My goal is not to dilute what I'm trying to do. My goal is to win. And sometimes winning means ideologically crushing the other side in regards to getting something accomplished. Just to be clear, this notion of reaching across the aisle and Obama was never going to get a Republican to do anything on Obamacare. And they persistently watered down the healthcare plan that was already tepid within regards to healthcare. With this notion that we may get Susan Collins.
Yeah.
No. The goal is to win.
Balthazar says they know they get paid for their fuck-ups.
Yeah, to some degree. My biggest fear, and also not just paid for their fuck-ups, they're disconnected. Like, they may lose and it may embarrass them. But think of all of these people who are screaming about resistance. Are they really hurt in any way? Like Alyssa Milano saying, "Oh God, I don't care about policy. I just want Trump out of office." Was she materially harmed by Trump being in office? No. It's just intellectual. Like many of these Democrats, all of these guys are rich multiple times over. Like from a standpoint of them hurt, it doesn't. Bless you. It doesn't.
Thank you.
By the same, my biggest fear, if I'm being honest, is for Sanders to win the primary and lose the general election. You have no idea how much that plagues me. That is the worst outcome. Like, that's because the legitimacy of the argument of the left hinges on a few things. Like, because always, people have this argument of how do you define the legitimacy of an organization or a thing. The left's claim to legitimacy is you guys lost 1,300 seats all throughout the United States. And if you guys are actually the adults in the room, you don't lose 1,300 seats throughout the United States. You don't use the House, Senate, Supreme Court, and the presidency. You don't fuck up to that measure if you guys are the adults in the room. In which case, there needs to be a new order of things. This is also spurred on by the environmental factors, like income inequality, poverty, harder, workers, like working hours, work multiple jobs, that type of stuff. And so there's multiple things, but if Sanders loses, I mean, all of this talk about the hegemony shift in the Democratic Party came because Clinton lost. It's a new awakening of sorts of, okay, this isn't working. Right. And you have other people who starts to speak up about this isn't working, something needs to change. If Sanders wins it, meaning the left gets what it wants, it gets his horse, it gets his guy, it's unapologetic lefty, ripping his shirt off, running through the street screaming everybody should get health care and everybody should get education, and he loses, that is a worst case scenario. Because at that point, that's one of those scenarios where they're going to be like, we told you. Now, fuck the fact their candidate lost. The status quo candidate lost.
That's not going
to mean anything. They're going to scream, we told you. You should have went with a Beto. And then so the next time around, Beto gets a push to go back to these kind of centrist policies. So no, it is, I don't want them to hit him in the knees in that race. That's my biggest fear. If I'm being honest, I think Sanders could win, and I think he can win the presidency. I think he kills Trump in regards to running. I think Trump may think that may be the weakest. I don't think that's true. The youth vote, in and of itself, that number of people who are going to be voting is going to outstrip that elderly vote. And just looking at that dynamic in and of itself, and keeping the other metrics. And then you look at the independent vote. Oftentimes when they're making these models, they're only including 50% of the public. Like, there's another half of the public that tends to not vote during the presidential election. And Sanders' key objective is, why are those people voting? He even said it in the meeting. It's something that nobody ever asked. Why the fuck doesn't 50% of the public vote?
Yeah.
The media doesn't ask that question. They just say, well, we just set the model for 50%. So I think Trump's thinking, if he's thinking on this, that Biden's is that, that Sanders is the worst candidate. He is massively mistaken. This is my own thing. Yeah. I don't think Sanders loses. Biden, yes, I think Biden loses. I don't even think Biden makes it to the primary. I honestly don't. I think they keep acting as Biden is one of the strongest candidates. I don't think that. Joe. Yeah, he's been talking about cutting Social Security, Medicare. Those videos have been making their rounds. The open your legs video is just grotesque in and of itself. The video where Biden is talking about Paul Ryan is right to cut Social Security. Like, he's going to try to get through the video of, give me a break, when kids are talking about the debt that they're taking on. These trillions of dollars. He's like, give me a break. Give me a break.
Yeah.
This is the guy who was on board with criminalizing pot, that's not on board for marijuana right now. Biden is not, mark my words, Biden is not making it through the primaries. Just saying. He's not going to have the endurance. I don't think he has long of heart to get through it. I don't think he's long enough to measure up to the tasks that the Democratic Party is going to need for Biden to make. It requires a certain degree of stamina. You got to be able to get it up and keep it up.
I think that's all that we have for today.
I'm making penis jokes. I'm talking about his penis.
I get it.
All right, guys. I'm going to end this here. Let me make sure there are no Streamlabs. Biden is somewhat creepy, so I get to make creepy jokes. It just works that way. Oh, Mark Benjamin. Hey, side note, I tried to donate to you guys using Brave browser. It helped because it blocks ads and it can directly give donations via BAT tokens. You can become a verified user. I should have some on the way. That's interesting. I think that's I think he's talking about what are those things? The Bitcoins.
Oh, hold on, we got 2 super chats here. Policy won't affect Biden's poll. This is from Winkle. He says, policy won't affect Biden's polls. His supporters like his personality. His personality needs to be hit for him to tank.
That's good. That's interesting.
Trudy says, if Trump wins again, the human race will cease to exist, except for the elites in their bunkers. It will definitely be a dark time.
So 2 points. The Winkle thing is fascinating. I like that. That's a good point. Lefties sometimes have a bias towards policy.
They like his creepy Joe personality.
The lefties didn't care about Hillary Clinton's policies. You know what I mean?
And I'm with her and her vagina.
Yeah, she has a vagina. I'm with her. She's inevitable. That was the kind of the mindset.
You know who else was inevitable? Fucking Thanos.
Thanos wasn't inevitable.
That's what he said. In the movie.
That, but like, people say that all the time.
Inevitable.
They said it all the time.
And then, spoiler alert, he chopped his head off.
Fucking avenged. Avenged is a symbol. God, I love that line. Like when he gets to that last point, man.
Wait, we're taking it down a turn. We're taking it down a whole nother rabbit hole.
I didn't say anything.
We're taking it down a rabbit hole.
I didn't say anything.
And I'm not.
I didn't say anything.
Going down the rabbit hole. That's my fault because I started talking about Thanos.
You mentioned Thanos.
But I think we covered everybody's topic for today.
Guys, I really do appreciate all of your assistance with the channel. When I say that you guys make this channel possible, I honestly really do mean that you guys make this channel possible. I continuously try to find ways to grow and expand this. It is not necessarily always the most straightforward or easiest thing to do. Like, you're kind of in a bubble and you're kind of trying to stream through it. And this is not necessarily the most natural thing for me because usually I was in software. This is not necessarily something that I've done before, from the standpoint of facet of personality. Nobody saw that, so, there's that. But I really do appreciate the assistance that you guys give to this. You guys allow this content to keep ticking along. So anytime you guys have ideas or topics for the show, please let me know. Like, just email is perfectly fine. It's below. And again, thank you for supporting this content. I try to be honest and straightforward to the degree that I can.
And again, that is the reason for today's show, the weekly patron appreciation / contributor appreciation. Mm-hmm. So if you didn't hear the spiel before, don't forget that this video here, will be taken down. It will not be available unless you are a patron. So if you're a patron, make sure you log on to the platform and check out the video. If you are donating or supporting through some other means, email us at the link below and we can give you access to the exclusive Facebook group that has all the content listed that is available on Patreon as well. Mm-hmm. If you're not supporting monetarily, just subscribe, come back. Yeah, if you enjoy the video,
subscribe, share.
Yeah, tell your mama,
you can still
tell
help
your friends.
In those ways. Yeah.
Also, we do get stuff through the mailbox. I didn't see anything this week, but if you're interested in sending something through mail, sometimes we get cool stuff in the mail.
I'm halfway through a book that I got.
Is down below. Yeah, he's reading that book.
God, that book is awesome. One of my subscribers, Cyril Sanchez. Oh, there's a guy named Noel something.
I don't know. It's in the bathroom.
Jewish author. Yeah, it's a really good book. It's funny. Luca Clemente, one of my other subscribers, he mentioned the book like a month, 2 months before she sent the book. And he says, look, there's some wild shit in this book. He says, not everybody will be okay with it, but I think you're detached enough where you're just kind of, oh, this is interesting, and not necessarily take anything personally and enjoy the book. The book is fucking fascinating.
Yeah, you've been liking it.
It's again like going all the way to like this assumption that just Homo sapiens survived at one point, like that it's possible that our Homo sapiens completely annihilated one of the other species on the planet, like that type of stuff. Like imagine that there were multiple species of human beings on the planet, as opposed to like the same way we have different species of animals. Right. Now, it was a really good book.
Balthazar, before we finish, had a super chat. He says his biggest fear is when Dems screw Bernie and Tulsi, openly so, and neither does anything to run third party, and Biden easily loses to Trump.
There's no consequence, or wins. I mean, you're talking about perpetuating. I mean, well, here's the thing. The problem is, if Trump wins, Social Security and Medicare are going to take a hit. Like you're talking, because he's going to look at it as a mandate. So if he wins, all hell is going to break loose on that front. There's going to be another 4-year war on that stuff. Not to mention Obamacare is probably also going to take a hit at that point, because if he wins, he's probably going to get sufficient numbers in the House to take out the Democrats in the House, meaning he's going to also get the House, Senate, and Supreme, and I'm thinking, not to mention additional Supreme Court picks. It's possible that Trump may end up with like 4 or 5 people on the Supreme Court. Can you imagine that shit? But you get my point. So this conflict matters in the Democratic Party. Like, it's a big deal in regards to who exceeds the primaries. It is an extraordinary big deal.
Baza1382 says, cheers from the UK.
What's happening, man?
Cheers.
Cheers. I have a video coming up on the
We're not gonna get into it right now, though.
I have a video coming up on the 1,334 seats that Theresa May lost.
1,334 seats.
Conciliar seats, essentially local government seats. Wow. All right.
Stay tuned for that later. Maybe I'll be back to do a show one day.
Well, I told you could do the other one, the Ukrainian one. That's
That'll
a good
be
one.
fun.
I mean, you just read it today, so I know you could do it.
Thanks, babe.
Guys, thank you all. I'm going to try to get her to do the Ukrainian show. That way I can go out and do like something else, as opposed to just be forced to sit here and do the news.
I don't know if I'm doing this day.
Alright, she may be back to do the Ukrainian news thing today. Guys, if you enjoy the content, please feel free to share, like, subscribe. You can always support this content through PayPal or Patreon. And just for watching, as far as I can tell, thank you. I'll see you guys in a few.
Ciao.
Thanks all. And we are